Hello, and welcome to the new episode of the First Rate Podcast. And my name is Justin Huan, your regular host. And today we have a new co host by the name of Leo Ryu. Hello, Leo.
Hello. Hello. Happy to be here.
Yes, Leo and I, we went to the same school together, but we are now separated by 3 hours. I'm glad you could fill in today, and we finally have a second host. A second host on this show. But again, thank you for coming.
Once again, happy to be here.
Let's how would you describe yourself when it comes to the field of entertainments
Um,
and movies?
yeah, I definitely say amateur slash the occasional enthusiast. So I'll watch every other Marvel movie.
Oh, you're
I'll
definitely
I'll more
of
often than
course.
not I'll more often than not like watch older movies versus new ones in the movie theater, just because just to explain to the viewers, I come from a big family, and so when my family goes to the movie theaters, it's more expensive than you know uh,
Yeah.
usually would be, and so just going to the movies wasn't something we did super often growing up. And that's sort of stayed with me as I've gotten older. Um, let's see. However, if there is a movie that a lot of people are telling me to watch, such as the movie Parasite this year, then I do my best to go with my friends and try to have a good time.
Yes, I feel like we're gonna be talking about that. That movie's gonna pop up a bit today in our
Yeah,
conversation.
sure.
Uh, Speaking of that, we are going today. Our list of topics. We're gonna talk about uh, the most elitist awards ever, called the Oscars.
The Oscars. I have heard of these.
Yes, we're gonna go over all these nominations, and I am the only reliable source for movie opinions, obviously.
Of course,
Uh,
yes.
so we are going to go through that, and basically, I'll give opinions on what I think should win,
Hmm.
what will probably win, and also like give a little like insight into how the Oscars go. If you listen to my first episode of this podcast from last year, I do go over some of that, but it bears repeat mention again.
Hmm.
So let's start off. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, after the Oscars, we're gonna do. If we have time, we'll do my superlatives, which
Okay.
are some random awards. And if that case, also Leo, if you have random awards you want to give out, that's also or random awards topics. And then I'll give you my top 10
Okay.
of the year, and then I'll give your my bottom five of the year,
So when you say
which
top 10 and bottom five, are those all the movies that were released in 2019
yes,
that you've seen?
sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay.
So speaking of which, let's play a guessing game. How many movies have you do you think I've seen that came out in 2019?
Uh, Gosh, let me see. Using my good data analysis skills, I'd say I see a Justin Huang movie review Facebook post about once a week on average. So I'll just throw out 50 movies in 2019.
That's closest than most people say. Some people are like, "Oh, you've seen 100 movies." I'm like, "No, I don't have that kind of." I've seen at this point 61.
61. Wow.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
61.
Yes, which trumped my record from last year from like 38 or 39. So I've been climbing up, let's just say.
So does being graduated from school have anything to do with the increased movie count?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Mhm.
I would say so. Also, like, I think I'm now like definitely more conscious now of like movies coming out and like new
Mm.
release dates and all
Mhm.
that stuff.
Right, right.
One of my goals is to go to the Sundance Film Festival, which I'm planning on going to next January.
Okay.
So I'll be able to see all the films before all you suckers. No, I'm
Uh,
kidding.
so
So
elitist. So
yes,
elitist.
I.
It disgusts
Oh
me.
yeah, yes. So I'm the elitist here, so you can all bash me.
Alrighty.
But we're gonna go into the Oscars. So before
Okay.
we even start with that, I'm gonna ask you, Leo, what are your thoughts on this? If anything, if you
My
have any
thoughts
thoughts.
on the Oscars.
Yeah, just in general, like if you have any attachment to it, or you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I'd say in one word, neutral. I don't particularly care if one movie wins or not. I know some people say things like, "Oh, this movie deserved to win the Oscar. That movie didn't," etc., etc. But again, me not being a big movie watcher, uh, I didn't particularly care one way or the other.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't care much till around 2012,
Yeah.
2013 was the first Oscars I really watched.
Mm,
Um, that was the year that Lincoln was nominated, and I love that movie
mm,
very much, and I
mhm,
was rooting for that. And it was Seth MacFarlane hosting it,
mhm.
and he was very edgy, including an opening number titled "We Saw Your Boobs."
Oh,
So
hey, all right, all right.
there's that. But I've watched the Oscars since,
Mm-hmm.
and I've gotten very much into the process.
Mm,
Even though I know that it is complete elitism plus money, like basically who can shell the most marketing money,
right,
movies
yeah.
that are usually nominated between October and December,
Mm,
all that stuff.
yeah,
But I think it's fun because I like to catch up on what's getting nominated, which is
sure.
why I love October to February are my favorite times of the movie season because
Mm,
all these movies are trying to garner your
right.
attention, and the likelihood of seeing a good movie
Mm-hmm.
is pretty high in that. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff that goes into it. But before, as I said, one more time, before we get into it, I will say one fun fact about
Mm.
the Oscars. Do you know how the nomination process works?
Not particularly, no.
So it's split by departments. So let's say like you're part of the academy. So to be part of the academy, you have to have these certain requirements, like you've made a film, you've done something in the film industry, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
apply to be academy member. And then let's say you're a costume designer, right? You'll be the one in charge, or you have the opportunity to vote for best costume design.
Sure.
And the way you vote for it is in your department, you'll be like, okay, here's a list. Write down your like five favorite
Mm-hmm.
like movies or five movies you think deserve to be nominated for costume design. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll write like movie A, movie B, movie C, movie D,
Sure.
movie E. And then afterwards, they do a very complicated ranking system where
Sorry, who
they
is they in this conversation? When you say
uh,
they have a complicated ranking system,
the academy, the organization,
okay, okay.
they have a very complicated system where they like do kind of a round robin
Mm-hmm.
and where you stack all the first rank movies. So let's say
Mm-hmm.
movie B has most of the first rank votes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, but movie E doesn't have that many, have that many votes. So movie E gets discarded. Then
Mm-hmm.
you go to second choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then after
Right,
that, movie D doesn't have second choice,
right.
et cetera, until you bubble down to your final, like final five
I
or
see.
so.
And
And
about
that same, sorry,
no, so go ahead, go ahead.
and that same procedure is actually done for the voting. I think it's also done for the voting process, which is very, very confusing. So,
Also, how many votes um, are we talking about here, right? When you say like movie A got the most votes, what what exactly is the magnitude? Um,
we're talking around at least the total body of Academy members. It's around the thousands.
Thousands. Okay, gotcha.
So obviously everyone's going to have the chance to vote for Best Picture,
Hmm.
but then you have to see which people are qualified to not to vote or nominate for specific categories.
Right.
Like Leonardo DiCaprio is not going to be able to vote for best makeup and hairstyling.
Sure. Sure.
So um, that's basically the way in which these things are nominated. I
Mhm.
just looked it up. There are 8,000 members of the Academy.
8,000 members. Okay. And I'm assuming these are like the 8,000 uber rich elitists, Hollywood elitists.
Well, sure, they're
Mhm.
definitely of people of all all departments, but definitely there's been trends where people have said Oscars are very white, but
Oh, yeah.
they've tried to rectify it by adding more members and
Mhm.
people of diverse backgrounds.
Mhm.
And they've added new rules now to say if you haven't like made a movie in X amount of years, you can't be
Mhm.
on the Academy Award, so you don't
Okay.
get too many old white males. There's
Sure.
still issues
Sure.
with this, but given like something else like the Golden
Mhm.
Globes is trash. It's a
Okay.
fun show, but
Mhm.
it's 50 journalists who get to vote. And
Wow.
like members of the Hollywood Foreign Press who get to vote, who are
Mhm.
very much in line to get bribed.
Mm.
So, and no one cares because that entire show is people getting drunk anyways. So it's for
Yeah.
spectacle and everything. Now, I'm not saying the Oscars are that much better, but at least it has the surface level of saying, hey, we have 8,000 members.
Right.
You can't like bribe like 8,000 members, but you can have direct and marketing campaigns. I
I
think
see.
that's a difference, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
with that, so yeah, that's just my very basic take on the process and the background. So without further ado, would you kindly name off the Best Picture nominees of
Alrighty. Best
this year?
Picture nominees. We have 1917, Ford versus Ferrari, Joker, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, The Irishman, Little Woman, Jojo Rabbit, and Marriage Story.
Mm, are there any movies you've seen?
Yeah, so
Um,
out of that list, I've only seen Parasite.
would you like to talk about Parasite while we're at it?
Yeah, so let's see. I was originally not going to watch Parasite, or watch, I usually don't watch movies because I'm lazy. And like I've talked to you before, going to the movies is a commitment. You sort of have to
Sure.
dedicate 2 or 3 hours to, go to the movie theater, sit down and just watch, this thing. But I have two, no, three of my fellow interns at work are all students in Korea, from Korea, South Korea. And so they were really encouraging me to see this movie, even though they had already seen it. They wanted to watch it again and were encouraging me to go. Um, and so, yeah, so we all went together. We watched the movie, and boy, it was an experience for sure.
Hmm.
It was like I really went in with zero expectations. And I came out at the end just saying, "Wow, just what happened?" Right, uh,
Mm.
man. But very very good movie. I did enjoy it. Um, I wish I'd watched it again because I feel like there were a lot of details and a lot of things you can miss because of the first shock of the first watch. Um,
Mm.
so maybe in this next couple of weeks I'll try to watch it again and have a more analytical eye.
Yeah, for sure. You're right, because I got to watch it a second time with some
Mm-hmm.
friends,
Mm-hmm.
and watching Parasite second time, there's definitely a lot of nuances
Right, right.
to it. That one of the things Bong Joon-ho does a really good job is planting story threads that get
Mm,
addressed, and
mhm.
that's follows the writing 101, which is basically you. And if you introduce a thread, you have to follow it up, and
Sure.
every single aspect, except
Mhm,
for maybe a few things, but they're
mhm.
not necessarily important. Like they're always followed up, and it's
Yeah,
very well done, even though
yeah,
you
right.
don't know that it's being set up,
Yep, yep.
but it is being set up. And so yeah,
Yeah, so
we go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, yeah, because and again, I've told you this before, but my opinion on movies is very simple. I have bad, lowercase e entertaining, which is sort of the vast majority, and then uppercase e entertaining, which is like really, really good. It kept me engaged from the beginning to the end. And yeah, this movie was definitely very, very engaging. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I also love Bong Joon-ho's Bong Joon-ho's
Mm-hmm.
his quote
Mm-hmm.
during the Golden Globes, where he
Mm-hmm.
said, "If you are able to get past the 1 inch barrier subtitles, you'll be open to so
Yeah.
many other movies." And I was
Right.
like, "Yes,
Right.
yes."
Yep.
And I think for me it's different, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but I was raised on subtitles because
Mm.
Asian culture is very much like everything is in subtitles. Like you go, like I remember going to like Taiwan as a kid, and like everything's in subtitles. Like even if it's like in the Chinese language, everything's in subtitles. So
Yeah.
I've been used to it. So
Yeah.
I and so, but knowing people who are like, oh, I can't get past the subtitles,
I
I'm like,
know.
guys,
Yeah, I
come
mean,
on.
two things I want to say to that. The first is also growing up, being born in America, having Korean parents and a Korean family. So I don't speak Korean or read Korean too much, just very little. And so growing up, we would watch, Korean dramas, right? Especially where, yeah, I mean, you needed to read the subtitles, otherwise I would have no idea what was going on. Um,
Yeah.
and just the storytelling. Okay, don't try not to make fun of me, but the storytelling in these Korean dramas, the writing is really, really freaking good, And so I'm
Mhm.
just so grateful and happy I was able to appreciate that, um, and not be scared away by having to read, you know,
Mm,
the 1 inch barrier, right? And
yes.
the second is probably one of my most favorite movies, um, that I can't remember the name of. Oh no,
Oh,
I remember.
great.
Life is beautiful.
Life is
I think,
beautiful.
yes, I think it's an
Yes. It's an
Italian
Italian
movie, right?
film.
Yes, Italian film, right? So that's got to be probably my favorite movie. And again, it's an Italian film. It has subtitles, and it really impacted me in such a huge way. Just appreciating life, helped me appreciate life more. And again, subtitles, right? But so good.
Speaking of which, Life is Beautiful. It actually reminds me of Jojo Rabbit a lot.
Jojo Rabbit.
So, Jojo Rabbit,
That's
which
the
is Dominic.
Nazi kid movie.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So, Taika Waititi, the director who also directed Thor Ragnarok,
Mm.
is also plays Hitler, plays the
Oh.
imaginary
Oh.
version of Hitler,
Oh.
which
Okay.
I've seen it twice. It's really good.
Mm.
And one of the things it does is it is able to make fun of the Nazis, just like how
Mm.
ridiculous they are, but
Mm.
also show how dangerous they are in terms of
Yeah.
corrupting children,
Mm-hmm.
right? So corrupting. So the main character is like he just wants to, he wants to be like Hitler and Hitler's bodyguard, and it's
Yeah.
not until he is able to see the humanity in the Jewish people, in which his mother, played by Scarlett Johansson, hides a Jewish girl, and he's able to see the humanity in this Jewish girl as he spends time and realize that the dogmas, what the government says is not true,
Right.
and it's very funny
Mm-hmm.
and very heartfelt and
Yeah.
also dark and sad at the same
Yes.
time.
Yes. Right.
And that is not spoiler, not in my top 10, but it was really good. And
Mm-hmm.
going to these best picture nominees, and we'll go through most of them. But despite what I said about like, yes, all these movies are came out in the last like 3 or 4 months, and these things are being pumped in by the Hollywood machine. I cannot argue against any of these films, except for
Mm.
one. But
Okay.
we'll get into that.
Alrighty.
Uh, Parasites, yes, definitely Best Picture nomination for every reason that you said. I
Mm-hmm.
agree with that. Ford versus Ferrari with Christian Bale and Matt Damon
Yes.
basically tell your story about how the Ford Motor Company, was able to
Mm-hmm.
enter the Le Mans race.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called. Basically, it's like this like 24 hour 24 hour like driving like marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and just showing kind of like American ingenuity
Mhm.
and like the American spirit and perseverance. It feels like something you would see like 20 years ago, like that classic
Sure.
Hollywood movie
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
sponsored by big studios with big stars. And it's
Right.
so well done and so heartfelt and also very intense
Hmm.
that I very much understand why it's nominated. I get it.
Hmm.
It's got all the classic Hollywood flash and beauty, and so I understand that.
Hmm.
The Irishman uh, on Netflix. I enjoyed it a lot.
This
It
is a
is,
gang, kind of like The Godfather.
yeah. So if you've seen any other of Martin Scorsese's movies like
Mhm.
Goodfellas, The Departed, it is a culmination of all the gangster movies he's made.
Okay.
So, and you have all the big names
Yeah.
of in gangster films. You have Robert De Niro, you
Hmm.
have Al Pacino, you have Joe Pesci, you have Harvey Keitel, you have every single person who's ever been in a mob movie,
Hmm.
and it's based on this real story about uh what's his name, Frank Sheeran, I think it's his name, played by Robert De Niro, who goes through life working for this mob boss played by Joe Pesci, and he befriends this this what do you call it? Labor union leader who's
Hmm.
corrupt, played by Al Pacino, and it's basically goes through life and how what this guy does as a hitman and how it affects him and how it affects his family. And the movie is super long. It's 3.5 hours, but
Wow.
it has a very poignant ending. It has
Hmm.
a very poignant ending. And if you want to hear more about it, my last podcast, me and David did a lot, a full breakdown of the movie. But it's one of those movies that it's speaking of movies that you need to rewatch again. I was very tired by the end of my first viewing. And I
Hmm.
saw this in the theater, but I did
So,
want to go back and watch it.
yeah, were you tired because of the movie or because of like the day?
It's tiring because of the movie, but in a weird way, it's asking you to be tired, or it's set
Oh,
up for you to be tired.
okay.
And it because the movie is basically showing the fallacies of living this type of life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it does make you feel
Yeah.
tired in
Yeah.
a very poignant way. So if you have 3.5 hours, I would recommend watching this on Netflix.
Alrighty, alrighty. It'll probably be one of those plain movies. Like, there's so many movies that I just never watch when they come out. And I'll just say to myself, yeah, I'll watch it on the plane once it
But
shows
you
up
have
on the plane on some long.
Netflix.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing about Netflix is my sister has Netflix, and um, I could install it on my phone and with her user information and stuff. It's just I don't want to. It's or not that I don't want to. It's just I'm lazy, and there's so many steps that I have to take. It's like it's not worth it. I'm wasting enough time as it is. Like I don't need to have another
Are
time
we
waster
getting
on
to
my
another
stuff.
Netflix movie that I'm gonna make you watch? I'm gonna make you watch it, Leo, but we'll get to that later.
Already, already.
Uh, the other nominated movie is Joker, which
Joker.
I thought
Huh?
was really was very well done in some
Mhm.
ways. I think it comes down to this: you're gonna like it if you say, "Oh, this is like you know, this is a very realistic take on the Joker. It is a story about society failing, failing people, and society creates people like the Joker."
Sure.
And if you're coming from a perspective that this elevates comic book movies, I would say that you're gonna like it. But the
Mhm.
problem is Joker is inspired by a lot of Martin Scorsese movies, like Taxi Driver, King of Comedy. And if you're a person that likes those types of movies and you watch this movie, you'll be like, oh, this movie's a ripoff of all these classic 70s movies.
Okay.
So it depends on your perspective. Me, I choose to lean towards this elevates comic book movies, and it does a very good job in portraying a very gritty and a very depressing Gotham if
Mhm.
Gotham was real in the 80s.
Mhm.
And also Joaquin Phoenix's performance is great, which we'll
Yeah.
get to that specifically,
Yeah.
and also has the best use. of Frank Sinatra's That's Life,
Really?
like hands down, as
Okay.
the uh, but I will say that the one thing I didn't like about this is that some of the comic book elements don't really work. They feel
Okay.
obligatory. That's all I'm
Sure.
going to say.
Sure.
But it's good.
Hmm.
Little Women, the next one. I love this movie so much. I love it. Went in I watched this movie only because this is the last Best Picture movie that I hadn't seen when they released the nominee list. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go watch it and be informed. And after going out, I was like, wow, this is so like I am on a journey with these sisters, the March family, and all
Right.
these sisters,
Yeah.
and them going through life and them going through struggles of
Nice.
being a independent woman in
Right.
society,
Yeah.
being an artist, being going through romance and all these subjects, and it's so it just makes you it goes through all the emotions of like a soap opera, but it's not as sappy as a soap opera.
It was so. Was this movie? Was it true to the book, or did they take creative liberties in the film?
Have you read the book?
A long, long time ago.
Okay. I would say, without necessarily spoiling it, um, they split the book into two parts and they tell both stories concurrently.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
flashbacks.
Sure. Okay.
And yeah, so it does a really good job because a lot of the scenes do parallel each other, like the
Mm,
past and the
mm,
present. And they do it both
right,
really well from a cinematography perspective
mm,
to make you know which part of the story
mm,
we're telling at this point.
mm.
And the ending is actually more accurate to the author's original intention. If
Uh,
you know what the author wanted to publish in the original version of Little Women,
mm,
they pay tribute to that.
I see.
And it works, but it also has a couple holes because they try to go that way. They try to have their cake and eat it too, and for the most part, it works. But
Okay.
there is one specific incident. If you get to see it, we can talk about it. That it does leave another thread hanging. But
Hmm.
but take that away, I love this movie, even though it is outside my top 10.
Mm.
I unabashedly love this movie, and I'll watch it again so many times.
Good, 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 good.
All right. We got three more movies of these to go for to get through. Marriage Story.
Yeah, so I actually have never heard of this movie until I just looked up the list of nominees for Best
You
Picture.
have not heard of? Okay, that's
I
why.
know.
That's because you don't install Netflix and go through
Yeah,
like those auto plays where
yeah,
like
that's probably why.
oh,
Uh, goodness,
Leo,
goodness.
Leo, you're killing
Because
me
the
here.
rest of the movies, like they'll play on trailers and stuff, you know. So I'm like, oh yeah, that seems interesting.
Uh,
I should watch that movie, and then I don't end up watching it. But this movie, I mean,
you've never
I'm going through the Wikipedia right now. So
Mar- Marriage Story. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Marriage Story is the story of two people that are married, Adam
Mm.
Driver and Scarlett Johansson,
Uh,
and they are in the process of divorce.
mm,
And it is a very raw take on how divorce changes people. So
mm,
even though the two of them are like, we just want a clean divorce, we don't want lawyers, we don't want anything.
mm,
Once things go in motion, like all these events start happening. Like they call in lawyers, they
yeah.
call in like they have to pay exuberant amounts for lawyer fees, they have
Right.
to argue over the smallest things, the smallest details,
Mhm.
and most importantly, their like emotions like constantly go through ups and downs. And Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver do a very good job in portraying it.
Mhm.
And like there's a scene that you can find on YouTube like near the end, which is about near the end of the film where it's a classic Oscar scene where they're like outburst crying and all this stuff. But when the context of the film is so powerful
Mhm.
because the main point of that scene is guilt. And
Mhm.
it's when you
Mhm.
want to, you say something that you regret
Sure.
and you know you're going to regret, but yet you say it. And once it comes out of your mouth, you're like, oh,
Can't take it
shoot,
back. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
And this is the most comprehensive take on divorce that I've
Mhm.
seen ever.
Mhm.
And I was talking to David last time in the last episode where I feel like in movies they cover a lot of what it's like post divorce, especially from the kids' point of view. So like
Sure.
movies like E.T.,
Right.
move like all those movies in the 80s, they cover like, what these kids go through, right? But they've never seen like what
The parents go
people,
through. Oh, people.
yeah, people, yeah, the parents go through.
Mhm.
And what happens when two people are still in love,
Mhm.
but they cannot live together anymore because they have different goals in life.
Uh,
And that is it is very bittersweet and
yeah.
very well done. And you better download Netflix.
So, so this kind of sounds like La La Land. I'm getting La La Land vibes.
Oh,
I don't know if you
I
want to do a compare and contrast with that. I have
I was
also not seen La La Land. Uh,
wait,
so
you
still,
haven't seen La
I'm
La
still
Land?
trying
Wait,
to watch it very soon. When I
Leo.
at the earliest opportunity. I've listened to the music.
Oh,
Music's great. But no, I haven't seen La La Land yet. But I'm getting La La Land vibes from the description of this movie that you just told me.
I you are correct, but I cannot go into specifics because you haven't seen La La Land.
Ah, shoot. Okay.
I
All right.
cannot get specifics, but
All
if
right.
you, the viewer, has saw my last episode, you will know that I did make a comparison to that.
Mm.
But yeah, so Marriage Story is the one I would want to win out of this category. I would want to
Oh,
win.
you would want Marriage Story to win Best
I
Picture.
would want. I would. Yes.
Hmm.
And Frank, as I said, most of these movies I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with,
Hmm.
but we'll get to that. We have two more movies to go through. We're gonna try to go through this a little bit quickly.
Okay. All right.
Uh, 1917
1917.
is a it's basically World War One
Mhm.
like a World War One version of Dunkirk in
Okay.
the way it wants to do tension,
Hmm.
in the way it wants to focus on the individual soldier on the ground.
Hmm.
And the premise of this movie is you have these two soldiers who are being tasked by two soldiers in the British Army who are tasked by a general to sneak behind enemy lines and get to a British battalion and tell them to call off the attack because they're running into a trap. One
Mm.
of the soldiers that is being sent, his brother is in that attack wave
I
that is
see.
going to the trap.
I see.
But what makes this movie special is Roger Deakins' cinematography
Hmm. I've heard
because
it was
this
all
entire movie,
one shot, like a one shot movie.
yes, it is absolute. They do a brilliant job in
Mm.
that regard, and from a technical perspective,
Yeah.
it is brilliant. And well, let's just say when we get to the cinematography section, you will know the answer to
Mhm.
what I think should win. But my problem with this movie, it's a personal problem, is the
Mhm.
fact that I watch so much. So I watch a lot of football, as you know,
Okay. Yes.
and they did a good job of marketing this movie to get butts in the seats.
Okay.
The problem is I see the same money shots over and over and over again,
Like in the movie, they.
like on TV, like when they're
Oh,
promoting the TV spots.
I see. I see. Hmm.
So when I watch the movie, I know exactly what's coming. I was like, okay, the next money shot is after this, and after that,
Yeah.
the next money shot we're going towards that.
It ruined
So
the mission for you a little bit.
it ruined a lot actually. So
A lot of
I cannot objectively judge this film,
Mhm.
like whether I like because I was robbed of that.
Sure.
But it's objectively a great film,
Okay.
and this is also what most people in the industry are picking to win. Like a
Oh.
lot of journalists are saying this is going to win, and I would be totally okay with that
Mhm,
because I am very much a sucker for technical films,
mhm,
so I would not have one problem with this movie getting nominated. And this movie also does contain my favorite scene of 2019,
mm.
which I will not go into, but it involves a soldier saying, "That's all I'm going to say." It's it's very beautiful, beautifully
Okay.
well done.
Mm.
And we get to our last movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Let's just put it this way. Have you seen Quentin Tarantino movies?
No, I have not.
Okay, so what? But do you know what the one thing Quentin Tarantino? Okay, sorry. What are the two things Quentin Tarantino is known for?
I do not know.
Wow, you okay?
Well, why did I agree to come on this show? I feel like
That's
I'm getting judged so hard right now.
that's the I maybe that's the point. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
all
So
right.
the
I'll
two
watch
things
more movies.
Tarantino is known for two things: very good dialogue
Mm,
and over the top violence. That is his two trademarks. And if you want that, you get that.
hmm
But the thing is, what Tarantino does a good job for most of his films, and I've only seen a few, but there is an overlying theme to it and an overlying story.
hmm
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for lack of a better term, is basically Tarantino saying, "Look at the golden age of Hollywood in the 1970s.
hmm
Isn't this cool?"
hmm
And nothing yet, and nothing else.
Yeah.
Like there's no cohesion. The
Mm,
scenes that are made are wonderful. They
mhm,
are like if you take the movie scene by scene, they're great scenes.
mhm.
But as a movie, it doesn't say much.
Sure. Sure.
And this is the criticism that was levied at La La Land because people were like, "Oh, this is Hollywood like being self-congratulatory." But
hmm
I thought La La Land was such a well done film. I don't think it mattered.
hmm
It definitely would bias them to nominate La La Land. I get it, but like as a piece of art, La La Land's great. But I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is suffers more from the self-congratulatory pat in the backs
Mm,
type of movie, and that's why I really don't think this belongs because it doesn't say much. It
mm,
doesn't have anything interesting to say.
hmm
Uh, but I will say the end of the movie is has a great scene of violence. That's a lot.
Cool. All right, so we're at the end of this list of nominees for Best Picture, and it sounds to me like your opinion is that in order for a movie to win, it has to say something, right? Uh, how so? And then the follow up to that is, so then how exactly does a movie say something? You talked a lot about
Mhm.
cinematography. I think you touched on writing. So there are two building blocks to a movie there. What else does a movie have to do to, get that message across?
Yeah, as you touched, there's a lot of ways,
hmm
but it really, I think I look at movies like an essay or like an argument.
hmm
You want you have something you want to say, and you're gonna argue it throughout. So Parasite wants to argue about inside the story wants to argue about social and economic inequality.
Right,
That's what it's saying, like
right,
in Korean society. And
hmm
it does it through its visuals,
hmm
its editing, and its writing.
right,
Uh, Jojo Rabbit, through its comedy,
hmm
wants to paint the dichotomy between not being a Nazi and the how stupid yet scary they are and like humanity. That's like the dichotomy. The Irishman, through pacing, wants
mm
to show how much of a fallacy it is being in the mafia, being in the mob. And Ford versus Ferrari wants to show how scary and how brave you need to be in racing through the way it crafts its action sequences. So basically, I'm saying, as you said, in a lot of ways,
hmm
it's depends on what you want to do and how you can package that.
Yeah.
So
Um,
there's yeah.
yeah, I just
So
want to point out how different you see movies versus how I see movies. You see movies as an essay, right? An argument, like you
yeah,
said. And I think for me, and I don't want to speak for others, but at least for me, I see movies as entertainment, right? Which is why my bar for being, like impressed, I guess, quote unquote, is yeah, it was entertaining. I was entertained. Um, so I don't know, maybe in order to appreciate these movies more, I should start looking at them with more of an analytical mindset
I
instead of
think
a
it
laid
comes
back, late quote unquote lazy, point
I
of
think
view.
it comes down to this, right? We all want to like movies are entertainment,
Hmm.
just like any other forms of like literature, for example. Like you are going to like the only reason you will say this movie or this book is good, right? If you read it and you enjoy the story,
Hmm.
right? There's a very subjective aspect to be like you need to attach yourself to it in
Hmm.
some way, shape, or form in order to enjoy something. And from that point, enjoyment, you can start dissecting why you enjoyed it, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
dissecting why you like Parasite,
Hmm.
dissecting why you didn't like, for example, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, right? Like
Yeah,
there's
right,
like that,
right.
like it comes to the point of like dissecting like
Hmm.
your own reasons, and from
Hmm.
there you can also listen to other people's reasons
Hmm.
for whether they like or do not like a movie, and that's part of
Yeah.
like sharing ideas, right? Is like listening
Or learning what your
and
opinion should be.
or learning why. Like I
Yeah,
think that's the most
yeah,
important.
right.
But yeah, we are. So that's my thing. It's always like a lot of like introspection on why you like things and
Hmm.
listening to why other people like things,
Hmm.
which is why I do hold the opinion that you can never have a wrong. You can never have a wrong opinion on movies, but you
Hmm.
can have a badly informed opinion on movies.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that's the difference I make. Uh,
Yeah, makes
but
sense.
we're gonna go through try to go through some of the other categories. Well, if we have time, could you list the tell me who's nominated for best director this year?
All right, best director. Let's see here. We have Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese. Ma-
Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese, who directed The Irishman. Todd Phillips, who directed Joker. Sam Mendes, 1917. Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And Bong Joon-ho, Parasite.
Mm. So I think most of these I'm okay with their nomination. So Martin Scorsese has a vision for The Irishman. Like you can really see that it's his story and
Mm-hmm.
it's baby and his project, and he seeps his Scorseseisms
Hmm.
into it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Todd Phillips, Joker, it's I don't want to like say he didn't do a bad job by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that, but I also feel like I would personally put Greta Gerwig, who directed Little Women,
Hmm.
in place of Todd Phillips because Greta Gerwig, the way she was able to craft Little Women
Hmm.
from the way it was written to make it, different from other adaptations, to
Yeah.
be able to make, the light, make the world that the author created come to life and get those wonderful performances out of it. Like I'm very much more for Greta Gerwig.
Hmm.
Um, that being said, it's what's called repeating nomination syndrome, which is if you nominate one movie for one category, you feel like you want to nominate the same movie for multiple categories.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's kind of what we're seeing here with the
Yes.
Joker.
Yeah.
Uh,
So my question here is so my take on this is a movie like The Joker, right? Um, to me, it seems like the actor Joaquin Phoenix,
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix, like without him and without his performance, Joker, would not be as critically acclaimed as it is now. So my question is how important is the director versus everyone else, working together to make this film as best as it can be.
Yeah, so the director is basically the captain
Hmm.
for all intents and purposes
Hmm.
in the film, the CNC and all that. And the main thing I've heard when people describe directors is their main job is to get good performances because they're always on set
Hmm.
and they always like have to tell the actors, direction and how to, and all this stuff. But they're also like very involved in, production meetings and editing. They're in
Right.
in every aspect. So if you again, I hate to say this, but it depends
Hmm.
because you have there's two types of directors. I'm not saying it's just those two types, but generally there's two types. There's what's called a writer director,
Hmm.
which is the person that wrote the movie is also directing it. So they
Yeah.
basically, for all intents and purposes, see the process from beginning to end. So
Sure.
something like Martin Scorsese is like
Yep.
that. Someone like Sam Mendes is like that. Someone
Hmm.
like Quentin Tarantino is like that. Someone
Hmm.
like Bong Joon-ho is like that.
Hmm.
And Todd Phillips, to some extent, is uh Todd Phillips is like that, but again,
Hmm.
like Greta Gerwig is very much a writer director also, and
Hmm.
the way that she is able to seep her creativity into the entire process. I'm not saying Todd Phillips didn't do it.
Hmm.
That's not what I'm saying, but in terms of who I believe was able to seep their creativity throughout the entire film, I would say Greta Gerwig. Um,
Hmm.
that being said, who I think will win who I think should win is Sam Mendes because
Sam
if you
Mendes.
look because you look at the technicality of that film,
Mhm.
it is absolutely ridiculous. How does one do that? How does one sit around and just wait for the weather to be clear so that
Yeah.
you can just get, the consistent skyline? It's the consistent cloudy shot. Like, how do you make sure that everything goes from beginning to end? You're basically composing like a one shot like amusement park ride like in some ways it's absolutely ridiculous, but that
Mm.
being said, I would not be surprised if they nominate or the Academy picks Quentin Tarantino
Mm.
or the self-congratulatory stuff
Sure.
that I said before.
Sure.
And again, so basically I'm okay with Scorsese, Mendes, and Bong Joon-ho. um my thing, I would say 1917 um should win. Bong Joon-ho, who also he's really good, so I wouldn't mind if he wins. I also wouldn't mind Martin Scorsese wins,
Mhm.
but not Todd Phillips, not Quentin Tarantino.
Mm.
That's just my yeah, that's just my opinion. But that's
Okay.
just all right. Let's go into the next category, best
Best,
actor.
best actor. Alrighty, we have Antonio Banderas in Pain and Glory, Leonardo DiCaprio, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver, Marriage Story, Joaquin Phoenix, Joker, and Jonathan Pryce, The Two Popes.
Mm.
All right.
So
What are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
this is Walking Phoenix's year to lose.
Oh.
So he is
Oh.
the absolute front runner, and there's no way he loses
Mhm.
because his performance was so critically acclaimed, and as you alluded to, like like he made the movie in
Mhm.
some ways,
Mhm.
and he deserves it because if you
Yes.
watch the movie, he goes full length emotionally, but also physically
Yeah.
to achieve the role, and it's disturbing. His performance is absolutely disturbing to the like whenever he laughs, and because he in the movie he has a condition where he has to where he can't stop laughing, like he laughs whatever emotion he has, and it's disturbing.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
my
it,
question is, did Heath Ledger did he win an Oscar for his performance in The Dark Knight?
posthumously, yes, he
Oh,
passed away before he was able to get the award,
I
but
see.
yes, he did.
Mhm. Uh,
Yes.
because it'd be interesting to do a compare contrast between Heath Ledger's Joker and Joaquin. I'm sure people have done this all over YouTube and stuff. But
Yes.
see how each actor uh, really took the role of the Joker and made it his own.
Yeah, definitely different aspects of the Joker.
Mhm.
But it is his year to lose. But going to more the other nominees. Adam Driver, as I said before, Marriage Story. I love this performance. If it weren't for the fact that I have to acknowledge Joaquin Phoenix's performance, Adam Driver is would be my front runner just
So,
because
oh no, go ahead.
because he just runs the gamut of emotions. Like you can see when he's like happy, when he's just slowly going through like a realization that like he's getting divorced and he's might not
Yeah,
see his son on a regular basis,
yeah.
and go through all these emotions. And there's a scene of regret that we talked about before, and it's it's so well. It's again, it's he does a very good job, and he also has a singing. He also sings in it.
Oh, no
It's
kidding, no kidding.
but it's one of those things like when my mom said like my mom has this thing. It's like she says, I think an actor is great when you can't see them as the person in previous roles. So, for
Mm,
example, watching Adam Driver in this movie, you don't
yeah,
see like Kylo
Kylo
Ren
Ren.
from Star Wars. Yeah,
Right, right.
like you don't see you see him as Charlie Barber from
Mm,
his character in the movie,
yeah,
and few people are able to like do that as much as like Adam Driver,
sure.
and that's my thing. But yeah,
So
that's
this movie,
mine.
was it a drama or like a comedy
It's
or
a
what?
comedy drama.
Comedy drama. Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
Um,
and
yeah.
going through the others, Antonio Banderas and Pain and Glory, which I did see Pain and Glory recently, just to be informed on this. Uh, it's interesting because the movie is a semi-autobiographical film of the director.
Mm,
So Antonio Banderas is basically playing the director, and there's a scene in the movie where it's almost a meta commentary on acting where it's like, oh, like I don't like Antonio Banderas' character is like talking to this theater guy, and he's like, I don't like when your actors like start crying and overacting.
mm,
And if you look at Antonio Banderas' performance, he is very restrained.
okay.
So it's a very interesting meta commentary on acting, at least from Antonio Banderas'
Mm.
uh, perspective. That being said, in
So,
terms
sorry,
of
his acting was the commentary, or the movie itself was the commentary? Like his performance was the commentary,
it's
or the
it's
movie itself.
it's the movie, yeah, it's the movie having the meta commentary,
Mhm.
but that reflects in Antonio Banderas' performance.
Mm.
So yeah, and for that, like I don't know, he was good. I don't think I would have given it to. I wouldn't have nominated him.
Mhm.
For example, we'll get to this. Like Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems was
Mhm.
really good. Robert Pattinson in The Lighthouse was also terrifically good.
Mm.
And I would have put one. I would have picked those people before Antonio Banderas.
Mm.
Or and yeah, and also we're all doomed, Leo, because Adam Sandler said if he didn't win Best Actor at the Oscars, he would make the worst movie ever. So the apocalypse is
What?
coming.
Oh
So
no.
we're all dead. Uh,
Uh,
Leon, Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is fine.
fine,
He's
fine.
good. Like I just don't remember enough about the movie to. Well, I do remember, but I don't remember about his performance enough
Sure.
to really comment on it, but I think he was good. I mean, still, I would the aforementioned actors, I would probably replace it with Leonardo DiCaprio, but DiCaprio is a favorite when it comes to
Right.
nominations, so whatever.
Right.
Here's the one that people argue against, but I think is absolutely deserving. Jonathan Price
Jonathan
as
Price.
Basically the as Pope Francis,
Mhm.
he nails the art like the Argentinian accent
Mm.
so well, and
Mm.
he looks exactly like Pope Francis.
Mm.
That this move, that like you just feel like you're watching, you're actually watching like Pope Francis himself. And
Mhm.
like if you look at Jonathan Price, who has done a lot of different movies,
Mhm.
like but
Game of
he is
Thrones.
able to transform. Yeah, he's able to transform into like this real life person.
Sure.
And I am and I'm gonna go into this later when we talk about potentially my top 10, but
Mhm.
like uh the two popes is something that I think you also on Netflix. I think you would particularly enjoy.
Yeah, again, another movie I had been meaning to watch, just never
Yep.
got
I
around
mean,
to it.
not to out you out, but you as a Catholic, I think you would enjoy this.
Yeah, especially because, again, as a Catholic, there's all this talk about Pope Francis being this liberal antichrist, right? And Pope Benedict being the conservative, real Pope that never should have stepped down. And it's causing a lot of division, within Catholicism. And so when I saw this movie, I was like, yeah, I want to see this. Um,
Mhm.
of course, I do have this sort of hesitation on watching a Hollywood's take on Catholicism. It's just my own personal bias, right? I don't know how
It's
good of a
it's
job.
completely fair, but I think they do. I don't know. I'm not a Catholic
Mhm.
kind of Protestant, as you know, but I think they do a good job at being respectful to the Catholic institution and also very much addressing very relevant theological arguments that
Sure,
were happening in church then and
right,
now.
right.
And so it really feels like it's not some schmuck,
Okay, yeah,
who's writing this. It
yeah.
does feel like it's someone who knows, like, who was, in the Catholic Church,
Mhm.
and in that sense, it does. I was drawn into it, and I thought this was really, really good. Especially Jonathan Pryce's acting was terribly good. So I do really think he deserves it.
Very nice, very nice.
Let's go to Best Actress. Who do we have?
Alrighty. Cynthia Erivo,
Sure.
Harriet, that's Harriet Tubman, Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story. Oh boy.
Sure, she.
Saoirse Ronan, Little Woman, as Joe March, Charlize Theron in Bombshell as Megan Kelly, and Renee Zellweger, Judy, as Judy Garland.
Hmm. Yeah, this is.
It's been
I
half
haven't.
an hour.
Okay, almost done.
It's been an hour and 12
JP.
minutes. More. It's been
Pause.
2 hours.
I know, JP. Don't worry. Oh, we're almost done. We're almost done. Okay? Just hang out.
That's Leo's brother for the
8
audio
years old.
audience. Yes, that's
Yes.
that yeah. So going through that, I have not seen Harriet, so I can't really comment on that.
I have. Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson gets a double nomination because she gets uh wait, no, wait, she's nominated for Best Actress and also Best Supporting Actress.
Hmm.
Which she's nominated for Jojo Rabbit and Best Supporting Actress, which we'll
Ah,
get to. And not surprisingly, as I've said in my review of Marriage Story before, I think Scarlett Johansson should win Best Actress. That's my pick.
mhm.
And because again, similar to Adam Driver, they're able to have that raw emotion of what it's like to be go through a divorce and the
Mhm.
complex emotions that go through it.
Mhm.
Saoirse Ronan as Joe March is great,
Mhm.
but I feel like she plays the same character as her Ladybird character, so it's not like she's doing
Mhm.
something different. So I'm not saying she shouldn't be nominated, but that's the reason why I'm not picking her.
Okay.
Charlize Theron as Megan Kelly is very good because you can't recognize Charlize Theron because
Mm,
she's literally becomes Megan Kelly. Like
sure.
if you like,
Sure.
and it's ridiculous. But here's my thing. Here's my small thing with this. Megan, most of it is done.
Sorry, Justin. JP.
Yeah, you're good.
JP, can you wait outside,
I
please?
did this. I
JP.
did this.
I'm sorry, Justin.
It's
JP.
called brotherly love.
Oh
An
my
hour.
goodness.
Brother.
They're breaking.
Okay, we're almost done. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay. Can we just finish this, JP? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Keep the string on.
I'll keep it on. I'll keep it on. Okay.
Yes.
Here we go.
So we're going. Yeah. So my thing with Charlize Theron as Megan Kelly is I don't. Here's the small thing. I don't know the difference where makeup and hairstyling start, or the acting starts and the makeup and hairstyling ends.
Mm-hmm.
if
Hmm.
that makes sense, because
Sure.
a lot of it is the fact that she looks exactly like Megyn Kelly, and I'm
Yeah.
not like, and that's a lot. That's a credit to the makeup and hairstyling.
Hmm.
So that's like I can't really determine it. So she definitely deserves to be nominated. I just that's also why I wouldn't pick her because I don't know where the
Sure.
performance starts.
Sure.
Renee Zellweger as Judy Garland, and that movie I watched yesterday was such a snooze fest, but she was great.
Okay.
She was great.
All right.
It's one of those movies where unless you are a fan of Judy Garland, you're not gonna care.
Uh, what is she famous for? Judy
Uh,
Garland.
she played Dorothy in Wizard of Oz,
I see. Okay.
Oh,
Great.
and she was a big singer and everything.
I see.
Uh, but yeah, that's my thing.
Okay.
Uh, we're going through. We're trying to. We're going to go through. Let's go through Best Supporting Actor. What do you think?
Alrighty. We got Tom Hanks, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood as Fred Rogers, Anthony Hopkins in The Two Popes as Pope Benedict XVI, Al Pacino in The Irishman as Jimmy Hoffa, Joe Pesci, also in The Irishman as Russell Buffalino, and Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as Cliff Booth.
Mm. Brad Pitt's gonna win this because Brad Pitt, and he hasn't won. He actually hasn't
Oh,
won in the Academy Awards. He's been nominated, so he's going to the Leonardo DiCaprio
oh,
syndrome.
I see.
So, and he's won a lot of Best Supporting Actor awards and this year's award cycle, so he's probably going to win.
I see.
Um, Tom Hanks is also really good. He's super wholesome as Fred Rogers. If
Yep.
it wasn't for the Academy being, hey, we need to
yeah.
let this person win
Mhm.
because we haven't given him the award. I would go with Tom Hanks as the probable winner. Everything else, Anthony, I don't think Anthony Hopkins deserves to be in this,
Oh,
just
really?
personally,
Why
because
is that?
he's good.
Mhm.
He's good in the movie. But the thing is, if you look at him versus like the real life Pope Benedict, the one thing that Anthony Hopkins can't nail is that like German accent
Mm.
because he just sounds British.
Breaks the
Yeah,
whole not illusion, but the
yeah, I
suspension of
think
disbelief.
yeah. So
Mhm.
that's the thing that personally I wouldn't put Anthony Hopkins, but
I see.
that's me. Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, I feel very similar. They're both great, uh, but they're also playing very similar roles because they've played these types of roles for most of their careers. Not
Mhm.
they're great,
Yeah.
uh, but uh, but that's just me. But with Al Pacino, I just love him in The Irishman because he has all these like one-liners. He's like, as Jimmy Hoffa at a rally, he's like, "We must have solidarity," and he like keeps on like solidarity. It's so good. So I love Al Pacino. So I
Cool. Cool.
what am I let's go through Best Supporting Actress. Who do we have here?
We have Kathy Bates as Richard Jewell, in Richard Jewell as Barbara Bobby Jewell, Laura Dern in Marriage Story as Nora Fanshawe, Scarlett Johansson in Jojo Rabbit as Rosie Betzler, Florence Pugh, Little Woman as Amy March, and Margot Robbie in Bombshell
Bombshell.
as Kayla
Popsicle.
Popsicle.
Pop
Sure.
pistol.
Sure, there it is.
Pop pistol.
Pop Pistol. You
Yes,
heard
let's
it.
go with
You
that.
heard it from the gentleman, ladies and gentlemen.
Because that's how a pistol is in like the flower. That's how it's spelled.
Very good. Very good.
Gotcha. Uh, I haven't seen Kathy Bates in Richard Jewell. I didn't see Richard Jewell yet. That's the one thing I'm blind in. Um, they're all of them are good.
Mhm.
Laura Dern is probably going to win just by precedence of the other awards.
Mhm.
She's great. She plays Scarlett Johansson's lawyer in Marriage Story. She's her character is very manipulative,
Mm.
and she's really good at it. But my winner would be Florence Pugh, just because the way she is able to play two different characters, because a young version and an older version, and you can
Mhm.
clearly see her maturity. She
Mhm.
was terribly, uh, just like terribly good at showing like a character's growth.
Yeah.
Margot Robbie in Bombshell. Eh,
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 it's like I didn't really care. I mean, she was fine. Like Margot
sure.
Robbie was good. Like I'm not
Right.
saying she's bad, but it's
Mhm.
nothing like was like, wow, this performance is out of this world.
Yeah.
But for me, the actress that I wish was nominated was Zhao Shuzhen in The
Mm,
Farewell. Have you seen The Farewell?
let me see. No, and also doesn't sound familiar.
Oh my gosh.
Is it also
Okay.
Netflix?
No,
Oh no, I
it's
have heard of this one. Yeah, 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 yeah. Right, right.
she plays the grandma, and she's really good.
Grandma.
I
Mm,
wish she was nominated, and that would
I
have been
see.
cool.
I see.
Uh yeah, so that's just my winner is Florence Pugh, but Laura Dern's gonna win, in my
Gotcha.
opinion.
Gotcha.
Uh yeah. Hey, John Paul, that's your name, right? JP?
JP. Yeah.
Yeah.
JP.
Hey,
Okay, JP. Almost done, okay? Almost done.
hey, if
Okay.
you let if you leave us alone, is there something that I can do to give us the time?
JP.
Is there something
How
I
about
can
frozen
do?
yogurt? I can get you frozen yogurt.
No, you have to get me more than that.
Molongak? Well, we're going this Saturday anyways.
No, we are?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Why?
Because we're getting dinner with Dad's friend. Okay?
Then have a turkey.
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I
And you're making me
Your
resort
brother
to
is very
bribery.
your brother's
Make
very
me
cute.
resort to bribery. Oh my
It's
goodness.
okay. It's the
Kind of a brother am I? Yeah. No, it's okay. Alrighty. Let's see. Moving forward.
original screenplay.
Original screenplay. Here we go. We are looking at. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Knives Out. Rian Johnson. Marriage Story. Noah Baumbach. 1917. Sam Mendes and Christy Wilson Cairns. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Quentin Tarantino and Parasite by Bong Joon-ho and Han Chin-won.
Cool.
Cool.
I have two movies that I don't think should be nominated. Can you guess?
Sorry. So before I answer that, so screenplay, does that mean writing?
Yes.
Okay.
That is basically like you hand in like your 100 pages and the script. It's the script, the 100-page script. And inside is all the dialogue and the setup and scenes and stage direction.
Gotcha.
So
All right.
can you guess which two?
Oh, yeah. I would put money on it. 1917 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
You are absolutely correct.
Ooh, ding, 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 ding.
Unfortunately, there's no betting on this. But you're correct. Mostly because I think for 1917, because of the nature of the movie, I don't think it's something that's like something that when I think about screenplay, I think about trying to create very interesting characters and interesting, threads and weaving. I'm not saying again, 1917 does have good writing, but when I think about writing, like 1917 is not something like in the same way I love Dunkirk. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I would not be like campaigning for like a best screenplay nomination.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's just me. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because I really don't like the movie. That's so I would say the objective pick is I think I would say Parasite should win. I would pick
Marriage Story.
But unfortunately, I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's going to get this.
Oh, what? You think so? Really?
Because they need to give something to Tarantino. They gotta get something to Tarantino.
Wow! This whole conversation is just making me lose faith in this whole process.
No, you should not have.
You're effectively making me not want to watch the Oscars like at all. You're endorsing my opinion that this whole thing is just like a waste of time.
I'm not necessarily arguing against that opinion, but I'm also saying that it's interesting to talk about like in the context of like these types of movies, right? Like acknowledging that how kind of crappy like the process is, but given someone like me, I'm more than inclined to follow it. But for you as an average viewer, your mileage may vary, right?
Above average, come
Let
on. Above average.
Yes, let's go through let's go through best adapted screenplay.
Okay, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Woman, and The Two Popes.
Ooh, yes. The Irishman was written by Steve Zalian, who actually wrote Schindler's List.
Uh,
So and he won I believe he won the Oscar for best adapted screenplay also back in 1993. So this guy has a tendency to write 3.5 hour movies. So uh I would say okay, and also Two Popes is a great script also. It's based off a play and it's done really well. So I don't have an issue if it's going to win, but I think Little Women is going to win. Um, I think it's a great screenplay also, but I also think that it's because the Academy realizes that, oh, we didn't nominate Greta Gerwig for Best Director. Here's our consolation prize, Best Adapted Screenplay.
I see. Again,
right? So
me losing faith.
and then again, yeah, but also like to address like what I was saying, it's just like people are voters in any body are gonna have biases, so it's kind of like it's more of a reality than like losing faith, if that makes sense.
True.
Like
That's true. Yeah.
that's just my take. Like I get like if you can't accept the system, that's one thing that's fair, but it's more like these are things that happened coming into.
Right.
So let's move on to best animated feature.
We have How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, I Lost My Body, Klaus, Missing Link, and Toy Story 4.
Yeah, I really did not like How to Train Your Dragon 3.
I only like the first one. The first one's my all-time favorite. I consider it the crown jewel of DreamWorks. The first had that and The Prince of Egypt.
I personally love the second one.
The second one, really? I didn't like the second one. I don't know.
That's fair. Okay, like we're not gonna get to the whole like How to Train Your Dragon 2 debate, but the one thing I'll say, the reason why I like 2 is because it's really good at, in my opinion, like in expanding the story, but also having very complex themes and emotions for a children's movie, right? On like a very Pixar level.
That's true.
Which is what the first one does also very well, right? Like that's
right, exactly.
Here's the problem with the third one. Take the script of the second movie, strip it of any of its complexity and emotions, and you get the third movie.
Is it suffering from cash grab sequel syndrome? It's
not cash grab sequel syndrome, like because you do feel like it's visually gorgeous, and it does and you can feel that they're trying, but they had a really bad day in the office.
Sure, alrighty, that's cool.
That's how I felt. So it's not like I'm not like angry at the movie, but I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, you sound like a parent. I'm not angry with you. I'm just very disappointed.
Yes. I Lost My Body, also on Netflix, is a French animated film that it's weird because it starts up with a hand, like a severed hand, trying to find its original body.
Oh man.
And its original body is a teenager that has gone through traumatic events and is trying to woo a girl, let's just put it that way. So it's like it seems like a regular story if you take away the hand. Then you add the hand and it gets very weird. Yeah. So it's the most unique. One of the most unique films I've seen. Films this year. But I can't say I unabashedly love it, but I can acknowledge the artistry of it.
I mean, I'm just looking at pictures, and it seems to have a unique aesthetic.
Oh, very much. Klaus is my favorite of the category.
What is Klaus?
It's a retelling of the origin of Santa Claus. And it's on Netflix also.
Okay.
And it's done in a way that it's so smart in a way it retells it that you can actually believe that this happened, even though it does like take place in like a fictionalized world, like a fictionalized fantasy world. But you see like the way they put all these things together, you're like, wow, in this world this really could be how Santa Claus started, and
Mm.
it's very it's very heartfelt in the way it does it, but it also has a lot of dark humor, like for kids in like funny
Oh,
ways,
okay.
including jokes about being hanged.
Wow. Wow.
So it's yeah, it's a movie I saw with my family, and they loved it.
This feels good. I want to watch this one.
This is it's a great movie that I think your family
I think so. Yeah.
would enjoy.
Right.
Missing Link, which is about basically trying to find the like Bigfoot.
Oh. Oh yeah.
And
I've seen trailers of this one. I'm not gonna say I saw this
yes,
one. Yeah.
stop motion animation and all that jazz.
Ah, I see.
It's good. Um, I can't say I love it. It
Mhm.
feels like one of those movies that's like a very competently made movie that
Mhm.
you can show your kids, and you also will want to shoot yourself. Like as a adult,
Yeah.
you can actually enjoy it. It
Yeah.
has also some aspects of adult humor, a
Mm.
little bit here and there for the enjoy. Like, yeah, there's a lot of artistry to it. I just can't say that. Like, I came out with going like, okay, this is good. Like, it's solid, but
Mhm.
like nothing that I love. And
Yeah.
then Toy Story 4,
I
I
wasn't a
like it.
huge. Oh, you like it? I mean, I liked
I
it. I didn't love it.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
felt the same way. But then listening to people talk about it, I realized what they were going for. So I do want to rewatch it, but then again, I still don't think I would like Toy Story 4 over Klaus. Uh, my
Mhm.
thing with Toy Story 4, the reason why I didn't like it, I was a little bit confused with it, was because I felt like they rehashed Toy Story 2.
Oh yeah, right. Yep. Yep.
But also when I heard people talk about it, it's like, okay, like Andy's in or Woody's in a different place, that he has to reconsider life decisions, that he has to
Yeah.
reconsider similar scenarios again. And in that sense, I'm like, okay, so that's not necessarily lazy writing, so I'm okay
Yeah.
with it. But I still don't. Again, I don't really love it.
It was also really scary. Like
Oh, the
I
yeah,
it was so scary. I could not believe how, they were able to get away with that PG rating because I was terrified. I mean, I hate stuff like this. It is
it's
so scary,
terrifying.
terrifying.
And I cried, and I did cry a little at the
Oh,
end.
you did? At the end, really?
I was like,
At
no.
the end? Leaving his friends. I know. It's funny because I describe, at least to me, I described as to my friend as like, well, Toy Story 1 is like when you're a kid, right? And you have your imagination and fantasy. I don't know, Toy Story 2. Toy Story 3 is like, you as a kid you watch Toy Story 1 and now you've grown up and you're going to college too, right? And then Toy Story 4 is like you've had your midlife crisis and don't know don't know what to
No,
do
exactly.
anymore, right? Where do I go from here? Everything that I've known about my life is different now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's weird looking at these movies and realizing that, like, I think people like you and me, we like kind of grew up with these
Right.
movies.
Right.
Like I was like in I was about to enter high school when Toy Story 3 like happened. And when I went to college, I thought about me, Andy going off to
Yeah.
college and all that
Yeah.
jazz.
Yep.
No, it's so yeah, it's a solid movie. I still think Toy Story 3 was better. I like
Mhm.
that's my favorite.
It was such a great conclusion to the series, um, really. So, but oh well. Also, I just like to point out that the level of commentary that I provide is directly proportional to how a children's show it is we're talking about.
Yes,
Because that's
fair.
pretty much all I watch.
Fair enough,
That's the
you and
siblings
your
are watching.
siblings. But yeah, we're gonna
All right.
uh, we're gonna go. Okay, we're not gonna do this category because I don't know. But in documentary feature, I haven't seen any of them. That
No.
being said, there is one I really think should have been nominated. It's called One Child Nation, and it's available on Amazon Prime.
One
And,
Child Nation. Oh, is that
and
it's about China, right?
yeah, it's about the one child policy.
Mhm.
And it goes through just how it's basically this. You think you know about the one child policy? Oh no,
Mhm.
you don't. You don't know how inhumane it is.
Yeah.
And what the government does, and like how like they basically like bulldoze people's places if they don't comply. They have all these governments, these government employees, forcing abortions,
Right.
and like and you have this person who's interviewed who's like, yeah, like I'm now like trying to like help, sterile mothers because I feel like I need to, um, you know,
Atone.
make up,
Yeah.
atone
Yeah.
for everything I've done. And it's just like I came out of that movie screaming, just like
Yeah.
how does this like how in the world does something like this exist? But I also understand why they wouldn't nominate it because they don't want to anger China. So that's my only commentary on that section.
Cool.
Uh, let's do
Yeah.
best soundtrack or original score.
Best original score. Alrighty. Joker, Little Woman, Marriage Story, 1917, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
If I had to choose Joker, because I actually like the score a lot. I haven't listened to Little Women enough, maybe to give an opinion on that. 1917 is too much like Dunkirk.
Yeah.
So it's not like, and Rise of Skywalker, this is not John Williams' fault, but in Rise of Skywalker, you don't really have much musical room to make interesting music because spoiler, most of the movie is about everything that came before.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, from what I've heard, I think they're going to give it to John Williams as a, hey, what's it like? Thanks for doing Star Wars. This is
Yeah.
your last hurrah, which I'm like, I mean, I can't be mad at John Williams. So,
Of course not. Yeah, me neither. The man's a genius.
yeah. But my thing is, I want The Last Black Man in San Francisco. That movie has a great soundtrack. I wish it was nominated.
I'm trying to remember it because I did actually watch that movie.
Oh, you watched that movie?
Yeah, I did. It was on a plane on the way back from Korea, but yeah, I watched it. I'm trying to remember the music. It.
Da, da,
There we go.
The choral music
Very
and
choral.
stuff.
Yeah, I think that's why it just wasn't distinct in my memory. It's just very kind of ethereal, daydreamy.
But that's my thing where I'm like, I actually like, I really don't want that soundtrack to be nominated, but whatever, that's fine. I can listen to it on Spotify for the billionth time. But let's go to the two categories of sound editing and sound mixing. They are the same. So let's just
cool.
name those 5 movies, shall we?
Alrighty, we got Ford versus Ferrari, Joker, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Star Wars, Ad Astra, which I really liked.
Ad Astra's the only one in sound mixing that's not the same.
Right.
That's right. So before we go into this, do you know what the difference between sound editing and sound mixing?
In one you edit, like where you put the music, right, or the sounds, and the other is how you create those sounds? ?
Yeah, so editing is what you put in. So like if you want to like a sound for like in Astra, if you want like a sound of a spaceship, like you create the sounds and you put it in.
Okay.
Ford versus Ferrari, you want a tire screech, right?
Yeah.
Like you put in, that's editing. Mixing is taking all the sounds you put in together and making it sound like cohesive.
So like the sound of a tire screeching with the music score that's playing in that one scene.
Yeah, and making sure it doesn't like the screeching isn't too loud compared to the engine.
Oh, example. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically taking like, think about like editing as like buying all the groceries and mixing is like cooking.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
So yeah, you're right. I would like add Astra to get mixing because it's actually so like, I didn't love that movie particularly for its story, but as like a visual movie, it's great. Yeah. And the one reason for that is because the way it uses space and the sound of space. So I would love if Ad Astra won.
Yeah.
For that, for editing, I'm okay with most of them except for Once Upon a Time. and Joker. Star Wars, I'm like, if it's like, yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like obligatory. It's like you kind of have to acknowledge Star Wars. So I'm not like angry at it, but I would. But here's the thing: we've had this before last year. There was a movie called Bohemian Rhapsody that got all the awards last year, including editing, like pure editing, sound editing, and sound mixing.
Yeah.
And when it won for both sound editing and sound mixing, I was angry because what do you have to put in? Like musical sounds? Like what is so difficult? Like what's the difference between someone like Bohemian Rhapsody and like I don't know the Johnny Cash movie that came out like 10 years ago? It's the same thing. And the reason why I bring it up because I'm afraid this is what's going to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is going to be that. They're going to put it in. Now, the only reason Once Upon a Time in Hollywood I can listen to an argument is if like Tarantino says we put in like genuine, sounds from the time. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe you have a merit there. But if it besides that, I'm like, anyways, yeah, we are. Yeah, I really don't. I don't. Yeah, that's the sound. Proto design. Prod design.
Prod design. What are we talking about here? Production design. Like set?
Yeah, like set. Yeah.
Cool. We have The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite.
Irishman, I don't necessarily think it deserves it because the sets are pretty typical. Yeah, and it's also most of the things that it does is mostly due. The reason why it has a certain look is mostly because of the cinematography, not because of the production design, in my opinion.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit, I get it. Because the sets are very colorful. And it has a very fantasy feeling to it. In the way it sets up the town in that. 1917. Yes. Because you have to make a maze, like a little like ride. Like how do you do that? I have no idea. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's the SpongeBob like meme, like lowercase, uppercase, Hollywood. That's my thoughts. And Parasite. Yes, it's great.
Cool. When the door opened and you're looking down and it's just dark, it's like that sets the new tone. It sets a tone for the rest of the movie.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's only the second time I've ever been legitimately scared of a movie. Like chills.
Yeah.
But also do you know why when that slight spoilers for Parasite, that scene where their house is getting flooded, right? And they're and the bathroom is like and the toilet's just like spewing crap, right? Do you know why the toilet is elevated that way?
Do I know? No, I don't.
Yeah, it's a redundant question. The reason that is the case is because, and I had a friend, my friend David, his mother actually told him, was because they live in the place that is below the sewer line. And in order for like something like the toilet to basically be able to interact with the sewer line, you have to elevate it above the sewer line. So it's one of those small things, right? That like in terms of production design, like is very important, right? Like those small details.
Yes.
So so I wouldn't have a problem with Parasite or 1917. So those are like my two things. I think me being cynical again, Hollywood. Anyways, okay. So cinematography. What we got?
We've got The Irishman, Joker, The Lighthouse. I think your personal favorite, right? 1917. And also your personal favorite, Once Upon a
Oh
Time in
God!
Hollywood.
All right, all right. I'm gonna count to three, and we're gonna say who's gonna win. Three,
Okay.
two, one.
Hollywood.
1917.
Oh, I thought we were still
No,
gonna.
19,
Okay.
no, 1917. 1917.
1917.
Because you make a one shot, like a simulated one shot. There's no way that even those Hollywood loving people
Yeah.
can say no to.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you see them, you're like, holy crap, how do they do something like that?
Right.
But it's Roger Deakins' award to lose.
Mm,
Like there is no way he is going to lose this nomination.
yeah.
But The Lighthouse is actually would be my second favorite because
Black and
the
white.
way yeah, and like the way it's able to
Oh, right. The camera angles.
and the way it's able to alter blacks and the whites to get this sense of horror and claustrophobia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Woohoo.
it's such a weird movie. Like I would say like I would have been like I want a lot of the nominees for I would wish The Lighthouse got out for more acting awards, but I get it that it's too weird.
Uh,
um,
is it a horror movie?
yes, well, it's kind of like a thriller horror.
Oh, okay.
It's like someone going into descending into madness
Yeah.
type of deal. Definitely not a movie that you should watch with your family.
Sure.
But what we got for makeup and hairstyling?
Alrighty. Bombshell, of course. Joker, Judy, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and 1917.
Who do you think I think is gonna win?
Bombshell.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Because everybody looks exactly like their real life counterparts, and that's just it's theirs to lose. If anyone
Yeah.
else wins, I'm gonna be very very surprised.
Yep.
Let's go with costume. Who we got?
Then we got The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Woman, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I have no feeling for this, but my gut goes with Little Women
Little Woman.
because it's like the classic like period piece.
Yeah.
And okay, if Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gets this, I'm gonna flip. Um, but yeah, but that's just my thing. Like the Academy usually likes giving it to classic, like time period movies. Nothing against the rest of the movie. The Irishman's like just a bunch of people in suits.
Yeah, right.
Joker is also like Jojo Rabbit's like World War II stuff. Joker is just like nothing too glamorous except for Joker's costume near the end of the movie. Like again, this is the repeating this is the repeating nomination job.
He's on the talk show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's also the repeating nomination, probably like where's like Downton Abbey, which I think rightfully should be nominated for costume. Like there's a bunch of other movies besides the the hip best picture types of award-winning movies that could be nominated there. But that's just me. Let's go with editing.
Editing: Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite.
Also have no feeling for this. But if I had to, I don't think it's going to be The Irishman or Jojo Rabbit. That's the best I can tell you. Just because when I think about editing and like how editing factors into these movies, you could make the argument for Jojo Rabbit, like the editing of comedy. And The Irishman has good editing, don't get me wrong, but also a lot of people in the Academy do think The Irishman is boring from like anonymous sources. So I feel like I don't think that's going to be a thing. Ford versus Ferrari does have good editing because when you try to make an action sequence, you have to have good editing. Joker also has good editing because the way sometimes its twist needs certain editing beats. And Parasite has really good editing also. So maybe this is the part where they'll be like, "Here, Parasite.
Oh, you don't
have your little award." I don't know. I'm being
so cynical.
This is just I'm just being
real.
Realistic.
Realistic.
Just being a little real.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's go with the visual effects.
Alrighty, you got Avengers: Endgame, The Irishman, The Lion King, 1917, and Star Wars. 1917.
Okay.
Why would this one get best visual effects?
Because if you think about it, in order to simulate a one take, you also need visual effects to stitch
Oh, okay.
multiple takes. But that's also an editing thing. But also one of the things about visual effects, you're talking about
Right.
the effect, the visual,
So
like
talking about like
what
explosions and smoke,
exactly, exactly.
the trenches. Yeah.
And if you look at the behind the scenes, there's a lot of those effects that are done very well.
Mm,
The Academy doesn't usually give these awards to the blockbusters, so sorry, Endgame, sorry, Rise of Skywalker.
yeah.
Uh, they love to nominate them. Irishman, I hope it doesn't, because one of the things that The Irishman was known for is trying to de-age all its actors, and a young Robert De Niro looks scary.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that. So
Yeah.
please, so that leaves with The Lion King, which I haven't seen it. I'm gonna see it sometime in the next couple weeks. But the one
Yeah.
thing from the trailers, it looks gorgeous, like photorealistic.
It really does.
Uh,
I can't believe it's CGI,
it's
But
like
I
yeah,
can't believe it's CGI, but it is gorgeous.
yeah. So it's like watching a National Geographic.
Yeah. The hair, how they're able to animate the hair is
You
just
can touch
blows my
it.
mind. Yeah.
You can
It's
touch it.
such fine detail.
Yeah. So I think this is 1970. I think this is 1917, just by process of elimination, and also that like I feel like they're not going to give this to the Lion King. So I think process of elimination,
Sure.
1917.
Sure. Very good.
Uh,
Very good.
I cool. The last one we're going to go is uh, best international film.
Best international feature film. We got Corpus Christi, Honeyland. All right, so Corpus Christi is Polish. Honeyland is from North Macedonia. Les Mis from France. Pain and Glory, Spain, and Parasite, South Korea. I feel like Parasite's got to win this one, right?
It's definitely there's no
No
way it's
doubt,
not going to
right?
win,
Yeah, there's no doubt.
because the thing is, I mean, it's kind of obvious if you're international film that gets nominated for best picture, like you're gonna win, best international picture, right?
Right, right.
It's like when Toy Story 3 back in 2010 got nominated for best picture. There's no way it wasn't gonna win best animated, right?
Sure.
So,
Right.
but I have seen two others, which we talk about Pain and Glory, which I thought was okay, only because I don't think it executed its structure well, because it wanted to have like, oh, here's Antonio Banderas' character in the present as an old person, and also have flashbacks in the past as a child, but they don't really mesh together that well. And the movie also has one scene where it just stops and says, hello, I am the character. Here's all my medical conditions. And it's like, well, you could just show, not tell. But,
right, right. It's like Joker in Suicide Squad, where he says like broken and tattoo,
yeah,
or whatever.
I'm
right?
gonna make this hurt. No, I get you. But I've said Les Mis is actually, which is not based on the play, or the book, but the reason why it has the title is because the movie takes place in the town that Victor Hugo wrote Les Mis.
I see.
And my best way to describe that movie is take the themes of Parasite, about like economic and social inequality, transfer it to the inner cities of Paris, and make the villains like the police.
Yeah.
Or make the oppressive force police, and with that same type of you get Les Mis. And it is very like terrifying in the way it shows that the system of oppression of like the police force against people of minority groups, and also the way, just like, if you know, most of especially France is very much segregated, like de facto segregated between the rich city white population and the the North, the people descended from North Africans, who are colonized by the French, right? Like and the movie ends poignantly and using one of Victor Hugo's quotes, which says basically there are no bad men or bad apples, there are bad cultivators, which implies that like system, like which sadly implies that in the good um in the even good people cannot overcome a bad system.
Mm.
And that's kind of very sad because one of the characters you follow as a police officer is very he's like the man of the law who wants to do good, but it's even when he tries to do good it doesn't work out.
Oh.
And it's very in that sense it's very sad, and it also shows the process of radicalization of why the cycle of violence continue.
Yes.
It's not a fun movie to watch, but it's very well deserving of its best international film
Is
nomination.
it fiction or based on a true story?
It's a semi-autobiographical in sense of like the collective experience of the director
Mm.
living in these areas.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's my thing.
Gotcha.
Wow, we spent a lot of time on the Oscars.
We did, didn't we?
We are going to. How much time do you have left, sir?
Maybe like 10-ish minutes.
I can't even get to my top 10. Okay.
Let's try to fit it. Let's try to fit it in.
Okay. Because we spent time on some of these movies, we can scroll through.
Yeah.
So okay, let's go through top 10. My honorable mentions are Klaus, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Joker, Ford versus Ferrari, and Knives Out.
So those are all honorable mentions.
Yes.
Okay.
Knives Out is so much fun. It's so much fun. It's a lot of fun.
I keep seeing Captain America smirking in that armchair in the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can take this seriously.
No, but if you look at what's the actor's name? Chris Evans.
Chris Evans.
Yeah. Before he played Captain America, he played most of these like a-hole-ish frat boy roles.
Yeah, right, yep.
So this is going back to his roots. So this
going back to his roots, bro.
Yeah, I highly recommend that movie. It's a lot of fun. Let's go through my number 10, Just Mercy.
Just Mercy.
It's a story about the death penalty where Michael B. Jordan. It's based on a true story. Michael B. Jordan plays Brian Stevenson, a graduate from Harvard Law, who sets up an organization to advocate for people on death row. And he is defending specifically Walter McMillan, played by Jamie Foxx. Walter McMillan is a person on death row who is falsely accused of something he did not commit, of a murder.
Right.
And this is, I believe, somewhere in the South. It's like Georgia or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it goes through a lot of very heavy themes of the death penalty and why it disproportionately targets people of color and minorities. And it doesn't shy away from the fact that overcoming a system like this is very hard. But it takes a Mr. Goes to Washington attitude. I'm not sure if you've seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Have you seen that?
No.
No, okay. Well, the only reason I say it because it's like it's that thing like the one man can overcome a system, type of thing, like with overcome obstacles and everything. And Just Mercy does do that a little bit, also is able to balance it with the realities of the death penalty and like even people that are able to get out that are falsely accused, like it has such an effect on them.
Yeah.
So it made me cry a lot.
Oh, wow.
Very, very sad. But it's like kind of like sap. It is a little bit sappy at some points, but it really got to me. But if you want another counter movie to that, there's a movie that also came out this year or last year called Clemency, which also talks about the death penalty. It's not as good, but the difference when it comes to Just Mercy is it basically says you can't overcome the system, or the system is so ingrained. So it's an interesting dual, like a back-to-back movie on the death penalty. If you want Just Mercy and Clemency. But that's my number 10. Thoughts on that?
No, not on this one.
Okay.
Just a very eager listener.
Yes. All right. Let's go to number 9. Loose.
Loose.
You probably never heard of it.
Nah.
That's okay. Um, it's one of those like big indie movies. So you
But
have
it's
this.
not even on Wikipedia.
No,
Oh,
it is.
oh, this is on a list of American films. No wonder.
Uh,
Uh,
Loose is
this.
about the main character is Loose. He's adopted by this white family, and he comes from like a war torn country. He's you know he's black, and
Yeah.
he does like he is the model minority, right? He's like the really the success story that came out from war torn area,
Yeah.
and he is able to do well in school, but yet he's being suspected of being of vandalizing the school. And
Oh.
it also shows like how the parents react to it, how the school reacts to it,
Mhm.
and the fact that this vandalizing is targeted at Octavia Spencer's character, who's also an African American herself,
Mhm.
is very interesting in the way like how the model minority is being propped up by so many different people, and
Yeah.
because of that, so like people are want to look away from it and look away from, and there's just it's a lot of interesting themes that are in there, but the movie also does a good job in making you come to your own conclusions
Mhm.
because it never really explicitly states what it wants to say, and
Mhm.
in that sense I like it.
That's good.
And it's on Hulu, I think. I recommend it a lot.
All right.
uh, Number 8, we talked about this. Two Popes.
Two popes. I know this one.
Yes. As I said, the performances are great,
Mhm.
but it also has some great scenes the opening scene is showing the intricacies of voting for
Mm,
the Pope.
yeah.
And my
Yeah.
favorite part is,
Chapel.
especially if you turn on the subtitles, you'll realize that all these different cardinals and bishops are communicating to each other in so many different languages because so many people come from so many different places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they want to communicate to each other in Latin, but
Mm.
then they don't want to because no one likes to speak in
Yeah.
Latin.
Right. Right.
It does
Yeah.
a good job in showing the language, like
Mm.
the differences in language. That's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah.
But also, the last third of the movie takes a very interesting turn where it actually the main theme becomes of spiritual guilt and spiritual loneliness.
Mm.
And it takes a twist, like not in the drastic way, but it seems very natural in the way what the story is progressing.
Mhm.
And most importantly, it really shows the friendship between Pope Francis and Pope
Mm.
Benedict that's very heartfelt and very human.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's funny because I mean, so many people put these men, these popes on these pedestals, right?
mhm.
Vicar of Christ and everything, and now you make me wanna watch this film because there aren't that many films, books, whatever that explores the humanity of these high ranking, religious
Mm,
people.
yes, yes. Download your Netflix. Get it from your sister.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you're convincing me. You're convincing me
Yeah.
slowly but surely.
All
Yeah.
right. Let's go to number 7, The
Percep-
Lighthouse.
The
Uh, in my
Lighthouse.
in my first point, I wrote in my notes, WTF, 50 explanation points. Because this movie's weird, man.
So it
This
looks
movie's
weird.
weird.
Looks very
Uh,
weird.
and the story is basically Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe. Their characters a they go to a lighthouse because they're stationed there for 4 weeks,
Hmm.
and William Dafoe is like, "Hey, only I can keep watch of the lighthouse. You gotta do all the cleaning."
Oh.
And so a lot of people have said that if they've had like a father or a boss that's like bossing them around, it reminds them of that. Uh, but one of the things that this movie does a good job in is not just the cinematography, which I've alluded to, but in the ways it just unsettles you.
Yeah.
And the ways it just like everything just doesn't seem right
Uh,
at all. And the next thing though, the only thing I'm gonna say is,
I mean,
you are never gonna look at a seagull. You're never gonna look at a seagull the same way.
I
That's all I'm
mean,
gonna say.
I'm just going through these plot summaries on Wikipedia, and
Why are you reading it?
I'm not reading. I'm not. I'm just glancing. I'm just glancing, and I'm just glancing. And
Okay.
yep. It looks very interesting. Very interesting.
Yes, indeed. And also, speaking of subtitles, I do need to rewatch this because this movie does a good job of having these characters talk in late 19th, early 20th century American English.
Mm.
And you can they're like full blown New England accents.
Yeah.
Like the accent that's like you literally it's so hard to figure out what they're saying, but it adds to the authenticity.
Sure.
Of the movie. And
Right.
the movie, yeah. And the movie
Sure, you love that as a proud New Englander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, this is my but yeah, no, it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the appetite for weirdness, this is the movie for you. I appreciate this is one of the things like I appreciate like how out there it is, and I gotta give props to it.
Gotcha.
Number 6.
Number 6
is Parasite.
Parasite, only number 6.
I was about to say you're gonna get on my case about
what?
This. Okay, let's just talk about why this is good, and then we'll go off the list.
Okay.
But yeah, no. We talked about this, right? Like Parasite is so good at like it's telling what it wants to say, and being able to wrap that like wants to talk about social and economic inequality and the story about this family that's just trying to survive this new world. And it does in a way that constantly changes tones and genres as we talk about.
Tones and genres. It starts off a comedy, it becomes a thriller, and then ends up as this just horror kind of sad. I don't know. It takes you for a wild ride.
Yeah, but in a way that like it kind of does come out of left field, but on reflection, it makes sense. You're like, whoa, where is this coming from? But then you're like, oh, okay, you did set this up, right? Like we talked about before, story threads, right? This story threads are set up there, so it's not completely out of left field.
Like the director is setting up the reasons why certain characters lose it.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's just so many. There's a lot of great things about this. So I know everyone's like, why is it number 6? And this was originally at my number 8, so I'm like, I did think it was a little too low. So I reshuffled it to number 6.
All right.
So I was able to move it up 2 spots.
All right. When you put it that way, you should have led with that.
But my number 5 is Marriage Story.
Marriage Story. You talked so much about it. I thought it'd be higher.
Yes, because there's 4 more movies that I like more. Slightly. So the thing is, if you look at these things, like my top 10 are all like great movies. Like my top like 20 are like very good movies. So it's like you're trying to like pick like the smallest of faults or details to justify one movie above the other. But when it comes to like Marriage Story, I think the reason why Marriage Story works for me over Parasite is just because the raw emotions. And the way that I was able to feel for everybody, like all the characters. And one of the things I didn't talk about is this movie doesn't cast judgment on either character. That it gives you like the arguments for both, why each one's justified, but also doesn't give both parties like, a free pass in their faults.
Yeah.
And it's
really good. It's really good. Again, exploring the human. I mean, sure, because some divorces, one person cheated or something, but for at least from what it sounds like, they're definitely just exploring just how broken, both all people are, right? Especially
exactly.
people.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's your favorite, but it's fifth on your list.
Yeah, This thing, the movies this year are so good. Like the last couple of years, like only 2 or 3 movies like per year are like. But like a lot of these movies are probably going to go into like my all-time favorite. Like a lot of these. So like maybe it's just maybe movies are better this year, or maybe I'm just watching more movies. But this is so good. Number 4 is Avengers Endgame.
Wow, really?
No
Really?
movie on this list has made me cry more. I'm not joking.
Really? Avengers Endgame is your number 4? That's cool. That's cool. I respect that.
Yeah,
I respect your.
hey, this is coming from the person who says you only watch Marvel movies, okay? Like, who doesn't have a vast appreciation? Okay. I'm pulling your leg, but one of the things about the reason why Endgame works for me and why I'm comfortable playing this on is because, and this is because no movie has able to be the best TV show ever. The best film TV show in a sense. Like it wraps up 22 previous movies and is able to like wrap up all these characters in such a really nice and neat bow. And to be as me who's like watched this like all these movies the last 10 years, like it satisfied me as a fan. And I'm so invested in these characters that I've grown up with that I am literally crying like this entire movie. And like when like what movie is able to make me cry like just because Paul Rudd as Ant-Man is hugging his daughter? Like because I've seen all these movies, right? Like that is an achievement. That is an achievement in film and like in film history. And there's a lot of people out there who like to be cool, would be like, oh, like Marvel movies aren't film. And in some ways I can see where certain people are coming from and maybe talk about the corporatization of film. That's fair and all, but if you want to look at just this, what this film and the series is able to achieve and how it hits me as a person, like I can't not put a movie like that made me cry like when I saw it like both times I watched it in the span of like 72 hours. like I can't, man. I have to put it this high.
All right, you know what? That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's just your opinion, right? I respect that.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
That's really cool. And I get again I feel like I've heard your opinion or your sentiment is shared by many Marvel fans. I mean, if you take a look at this past year, there's so many franchises or films or whatever where the conclusion just dropped the ball, right? Game of Thrones, Star Wars for a lot of people, right? It's so hard. It's so hard to take this whole universe really, and like you said, package it up in a nice, satisfying bow, right? So kudos to the Russo brothers for being able to achieve that,
Yeah, and this is also my favorite movie going experience. And just like I know some people don't like cheering and stuff. It's like when you're like, this is one of those rare movies, like Marvel movies, especially when they're good, when you are so invested with the rest of the crowd that when you like have those moments where you're cheering with the rest of the crowd and you're like, it's like a concert. You're like, whoop, and like that's something you're not going to get. This is the new Star. This is like the new Star Wars. Like Marvel is the new Star Wars, and we're never going to see something like Endgame again. Like my parents who haven't seen a movie in the theater in like 10 years saw this movie in the theater. Like you're not going to get this like ever. So like that's just that's the reason why I'm number 4. And I get it. People like, oh, Marriage Story. Why is Marriage Story in Parasite below? I don't know. Okay, I get it. I get it.
Very good.
I get it.
Very good.
My heart sometimes has to speak out.
I know. I'm just messing with you. As you know.
I know. Number 3, we talked about One Child Nation. The documentary. As I said, it's just I've never come out of a movie just screaming and going, why does this world have all this injustice? Like it hits you so hard just how terrible like what people can do to each other and what people can do to life.
Yeah.
And so, just so easily throw away life, and the way people can justify horrors and murder
I
so
mean,
easily.
my high school biology teacher praised the one child policy. I remember when I was in high school. She taught AP Bio.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
she was this Vietnamese refugee, right? And yeah, she was like, China did, I remember a word for word, China did a great job managing their overpopulation crisis. And I was just sitting there like, really? Really? You know? It it
It
really I don't know.
if you get the chance, just watch it because you also see how the Chinese population rationalizes it
Mhm.
in their mind, and it's scary. Um,
Mhm.
my yeah, I it's terrible.
Yeah.
But my number two, The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
That's number two, really.
You've seen it,
Yeah,
so
I saw it.
you take this away.
Wow, okay. Again, I rate movies as bad, lowercase e entertaining, and uppercase e entertaining. And just for me personally, I'm sure there are, this movie says a lot, right? This movie says a lot about the gentrification of San Francisco. Um, it says a lot about how people can be displaced, from their homes and from their families' homes, and it says a lot, right? But I don't know. I was like, it says a lot, like it's like finishing it was like me reading like an opinion piece from the New York Times and not like finishing a film and being emotionally affected
Mm,
anyway, if that makes sense.
no, that's actually what I felt the first time.
Mm.
But I also took a page from my 11th grade English teacher,
Mm.
and what he said was, no book is worth reading if you don't read it at least twice.
Mm.
And that's the same thing I do with movies, because the thing is, the first time you watch a movie, you don't know where it's going, so you do, like, whether you like it or not, you have preconceived notions
Mm-hmm.
of what you want from a movie, even though you might not think about it, you're like implicitly going to do that, right? The
Sure.
second time when you watch a movie, you know what's going to happen, so you can more judge it like, okay, like, you did this because of this. Does this make sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right.
And for me, like, the second time I watched it, it worked. And actually, one of the reasons why it worked was because the music worked so well that when I listened to the soundtrack after my first viewing, it connected with me,
Mm.
that I really wanted to rewatch it and see where the music came in. Uh, but yeah, so that I think, and besides that, I think the reason why it works is because this movie does say it says a lot,
Mm.
but I think what it does is it's able to do it within the context of just like a buddy drama of
Mm.
these two people, right?
Mhm.
So like you can say it talks about gentrification of San Francisco, but it doesn't like sit down, feel like, hey, this is the gentrification
Mm.
of San Francisco. Here's
Mm.
what's happening. No, it doesn't. It's show, not tell, right?
That's
Like one of my
true.
one
Yeah.
of my favorite scenes in that movie is when Jimmy is sitting on the bus station, right? And then this naked man comes in, right? And they sit
Yeah.
next to each other. And
Yeah.
then the trolley comes in, right? The bus comes with all the frat, engineers, and they scream profanities, right? And the all the naked guy says like this city, and Jimmy says, "Yes, I know." And
Mm.
there is so much meaning in just that acknowledgement without explicitly stating it. And that's what I love about the movie, because all the macro stuff it wants to talk about comes out of the fact that it springs up from this very human individual story.
Mm.
Yeah. And this story is actually autobiographical because Jimmy is the main character is playing himself.
Uh, what do you mean he's playing himself? Like,
No, he's literally playing himself. Jimmy, like the credits, Jimmy fails as Jimmy fails.
Oh, oh,
So it's his story about him. It's literally him telling about his story of how he's trying to reclaim that
oh,
house, right?
yeah,
And I'm a sucker for like based on true stories, and especially when people are like recreating their own stories, right? Which
right.
goes into my number one because it's a similar thing. But no, and my second favorite scene of 2019 is the scene at the end during the play.
Play.
The play where like they have to, where
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha. I thought the
and
play was your number one film, and I was like, I don't remember that one.
oh, okay, no, but my second, that's fair. No, the second you see, you know what I'm saying, like just the raw again. I'm a sucker for raw scenes
Mm-hmm.
as we've established by now. But the so it's going to sound cliche again, but the rawness of that scene of just his Jimmy's friend Montgomery just trying to pour himself out, right? And the entire movie is him trying to get into character, trying to learn people's
Yeah,
emotions
right,
and how
right.
they act, and it finally comes out in such a perfect way. And I remember saying with my friend David, and like he was commenting on on Montgomery being like, "Oh, you're not saying like when he's trying to say the N word, like trying to get it correctly, and he doesn't say it correctly at the beginning, but during the play he says it correctly, and David's
Yeah,
like, you got this, right? Like it's so it
yeah,
it it does a good job of just pouring its heart out. The movie pours its heart out in that scene, and that alone is is just great. And it's such a bittersweet ending too, in the way that's just like, yeah, you have to. This is the world we live in. Like you cannot reclaim the past, right? It just cannot. You have to move on, and you have to say goodbye to the thing you love, right? And so good, so good. So I do recommend. I know you're not going to, but I would say like give it another shot. Maybe you'll think differently. So my number one. Can you guess what my number one is?
Uh, I'm trying to remember what we already talked about. 1917? I don't remember.
No, it's
Joker?
it's in Joker wasn't my
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's your number one for sure.
absolutely
That's
absolutely
so freaking
no
lit. No, I'm trying to
no
remember what you already said. Gosh, I'm sorry. It's
no, it's fine.
can't even remember 20 minutes ago. No, I don't know. I don't know.
It's the farewell.
The Farewell. What? We have not talked about this.
We did
Oh,
talk
we
about this.
did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you guys go to my podcast back in July, yeah, July, I did an entire episode on this.
Mm,
Uh, but there's not a movie that I've seen that really delves into the Chinese American experience
mm,
in such a very deep way. Now,
mhm,
as I explained to this before to my viewers, it doesn't directly resonate with me only because the context in which it's talking about is a very traditional Chinese family. My
mm.
parents aren't that traditional. They're from Taiwan, which is much more westernized. So it's
Sure.
a little different. But I went to a Chinese church. I still go to the same Chinese church.
Mhm,
And a lot of my friends there live in the same context as in the movie. So in the movie, Billy, played by Aquafina, is like that Chinese American living with a traditional, a traditional Chinese family,
mhm,
and then she has to go back to China to visit her grandmother because she's dying,
mhm.
but they can't tell her,
Right. Right.
right? And it does so much in talking about like the difference between Western culture and Chinese culture in a way that doesn't condemn either, but wants you to listen.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of very accurate scenes of tension
Yeah.
where there's like extended family at the dinner table are like hey, like Chinese people should stay in China, and then the mom like strikes back and be like, hey, but why do you want to send your kids to university in America? Oh, mic
Ooh,
drop.
ooh.
Boom. Yeah, a lot of things I said. But
Yeah.
there's just I also like a lot of things reminds me of like my own grandmother on my mother's side. There's a scene where they're bowing down to all the ancestors, and the grandmother is like very like local and kind of like chanting. Reminds me of my own grandmother when she prays at church.
Mm.
Like she does that very similar chant. So there's a lot of things that like, even though it doesn't completely directly connect with me, there's so much of it that I can relate to, and I can see all my other friends relating to. It it it's kind of like this is a cliche, but like it's kind of like the way like Black Panther connected with like African American audiences. Like this is the movie that connects with me, and in the way that it is able to be like, hey, if you're a Chinese American, uh, this is like a story that is for you. If you're not Chinese American, this is a story about what these people go through,
Sure.
and and there's also other ways to connect to it. Like my good friend from high school, when I recommended this to him, he loved it, even though he's not Chinese at all. But he connects it because he had such a great relationship with his grandmother, and he connected it on that level. So this movie, there's a lot of ways that are very accessible to this. And one of the things the director Lulu Won, it's based on her experiences, and I'm not gonna spoil this. I'm not gonna spoil the ending because, but there's a fun trivia that comes with that. But one things that Lulu Won struggled with, and this is kind of like the world we live in. Like when she tried to pitch her story, right? She's like, a lot of studios were like, "Hey, what if we had like in your movie, let's change up so with Disney-fied, so we have like a white boyfriend who needs, and then that's the way that white audiences or non-Chinese audience can access it." And she's like, "No, no," and
Right.
and she came back with a very like mic drop statement. It's like, "Oh, do we what? Oh, if you want to put my story in a genre, then why don't we put your story in a genre?" Like you can't box people's stories into one like one type of story, one kind of genre, right? And yeah, so this movie, like I can see people being like, there are things that people might say there's a couple problems in this movie, which I can see, but like this movie just it speaks to me very much, and that's why it's my number one.
I like how your top 10 is like really Justin Huang's top 10. It's a personal list. It's not, it's not generic or anything.
Yes, indeed. We are going to, if you don't mind, I will go through very quickly my bottom five.
Okay.
Very quickly.
All right. Let's hear it.
Let's honorable or dishonorable mentions. Tolkien, Judy, and Glass. Okay.
All right.
Here's the thing where I come from.
It has Lily Collins. Collins.
It's bland.
Bland.
Like the thing, it's bland. Judy's also very bland. So it's like it's one of those things where both Tolkien and Judy are like, you will learn about these real life people, but you can also read about them or Wikipedia them, right? Like you can save the 2 hours just by reading, a book or something. That's how I look at it. Glass, which is a sequel to Unbreakable and Split. Not sure if you've seen those movies.
Yeah, this is the Split guy, right?
Yeah. So the problem with this movie is it's lectures you about comic book movies.
Oh.
About the nature or comic books.
Preachy.
Nature of comic books. Yeah, in a way that's like, no duh, we know this, but it also takes itself way too seriously. In a way that's like, like comic books are like part of, of what should happen in civilization or something. It's a weird, like high abstract thing. But no, I didn't like it at all. Like it needed like 5 more rewrites to get it correct. I kind of get what Shyamalan was trying to doing, but I think he missed the boat on that one. He's a good guy though. I did ask a question. He came to our school a couple of years ago. I was able to ask a question, and
Yeah.
he was pretty nice.
Nice.
But let's get into the list. Number 5. So 5-1. So this is the 5th worst movie.
Okay.
It's called The Good Liar, starring Anne McKellen and Helen Mirren. And you think this is just a simple movie about, oh, there's a con man played by Anne McKellen trying to snivel his way and steal money from poor Helen Mirren. Yes, but also it involves past that are linked to World War II and certain characters that get raped when they're younger and all these, and then there's a twist at the end that is pretentious. That's supposed to be like, oh, look at our twist. Look how we set this up. And I'm like, no. No. Because and the only reason this movie works is because Helen Mirren and Anne McKellen are really trying.
Okay.
And they do a good job. Yeah. And the reason is because they work together, like their chemistry is really good. But the script is absolutely atrocious. It is atrocious beyond and it also might have to do with the fact that it's based off a book, and the book is probably not that good either.
Sure.
And
sure.
And so like it has the bad thing about like it's really bad in the way it just explains things. Like when the twist comes, it's literally just like a character like dumping exposition, like, so this is what's been going on all along. I'm like, oh gosh, it's bad. It's bad. It involves. Okay, do you want to hear it? Do you want to hear the twist?
Sure. Yeah, I'm probably not going to watch this movie. So
good. Okay, so you find out that both of them are actually German. So this movie takes place in the UK, right? To that like early 21st century. Both of them came from Germany. Like they were used to be like pure-blooded Germans.
Okay.
And like during the World War II era. And then Anne McKellen's character, like as a kid as a teenager during World War II, raped Helen Mirren's character.
Whoa.
In like World War II. And like and Anne McKellen then like is able to he like escapes to the UK because he's working with the British liaison, like a British officer post World War II hunting down Nazis, but the Nazi war criminal kills the British guy. So Anne McKellen takes on the British guy's identity and moves to the UK, which is they introduced that plot thread in the middle of the movie. I'm like, what? When did World War II involved with this? But then the second twist is that this entire thing is a double setup. So Anne McKellen thinks he's setting up, he's cheating Helen Mirren, but Helen Mirren set this up basically as like a 50-year-long like revenge game to like try to get back at him for like raping her. And I'm like,
of course.
I'm like, what? Because like, oh my god, it's the twist. And then you realize so they've been living in this house and like. So there's someone who's like you think is Helen Mirren's granddaughter, but it's actually like her granddaughter's spouse or something. It's like the most convoluted, like twist ever. Like and like Helen Mirren said, I was like, so this is what I did. And all this stuff, and it's like no. and all the audience was just like, oh, this is really cool. And I'm like, yeah.
It's a good thing it only gets better from here, right?
Fourth worst movie. Let's go into that. And also my most disappointing movie of the year, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
What? Come on. Really?
It was my most anticipated movie.
That was entertaining.
It is. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. The first one
saw it at the
Godzilla, and then this one was like all Godzilla.
Too much Godzilla. Too much Godzilla.
You never have too much Godzilla. What are you talking about?
I got bored by the middle. I was legitimately bored. And here's the thing. I saw this at the TCL Chinese Theater when I was in Hollywood. So watching it in that theater was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But being in that theater was cool. The movie itself was. I think the reason why this movie doesn't work is because it's so. The humans' story doesn't work. It's basically a Transformers movie where the humans don't really work.
Yeah.
And not only that, they have the
you
most.
You don't watch it for the humans. You watch it for Godzilla, you know?
Yeah.
And
then
boy,
it gets
does Godzilla deliver. The movie might not, but Godzilla sure does.
Yeah. But okay, so you take the human element away, right? It goes through every single what you think a Godzilla movie goes through. Godzilla, new monsters shows up. Godzilla comes in, fights. Humans, don't know that Godzilla is there to help them. Godzilla gets temporarily injured. Bad human.
It's a complex
kaiju.
plot, a complex story.
Bad kaiju goes around, and then Godzilla gets reborn, and they have another epic fight at the end. Movie ends.
Yes, I don't see what the problem is, Justin.
I don't have a problem with the formula. The formula is fine. Like that's what your Godzilla movie, but you need to surround it with a bit more interesting things. Like, for example,
it sounds to me like your expectations were too high. All right, I went into this with zero expectations, expecting to be garbage, and I was like, there was Godzilla in this movie. I'm happy. But it sounds like you saw that trailer and you heard that debut say, and you're like, wow, this movie's going to be so great. And then it was you're like, this movie sucks. It's a terrible
Okay. I will admit you are correct in the sense that I was hyped for it and it failed to me. Actually, I'm not doubting. I'm not denying that. But the thing is, when you have a movie that's so lazy that it introduced plot holes that my parents can figure out, they're like, why would you leave the little machine, like the sonar wave thing, so that the kid the kid who plays 11 in Stranger Things can take it's like, why don't you guard that thing? Very simple plot holes that show that writers don't care. They're like, let's just go to the next fight thing. And I will say that the fights.
Problem? The point of this movie isn't good writing. The point is to see two big monsters duke it out in the Pacific Ocean.
And if you have, I have one of my favorite YouTube channels, John Campia. He said this. Action with no substance is diarrhea.
Sounds to me like action is action, man. Like monsters are fighting. What more do you want? What more do you want? Are you not entertained?
Avengers Endgame proves that you can have great action with a great story. That's why. No, and here's the thing, right? Okay, we talk about what you wanted. We've talked about what a movie wants to say, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things you asked me, right?
Yeah.
Say what you want about the original Godzilla, the 2014 Godzilla. I love it. So I absolutely love it. But it does what it wants to do. What does that movie want to do? What is the thesis of the movie? What does it look like from the ground of a human being to see a Godzilla march around, to demolish cities from a as an ant on the ground, right? So you see a lot of the shots are from a human perspective, right? You don't get sweeping shots of Godzilla. You go from the bottom and you go, oh my gosh, Godzilla is huge, right? And it succeeds in that, and that's why I love it, because it's you have an angle there. This one, King of the Monsters, doesn't really. It has fights and placeholder characters and dialogue just to get to the next fight.
What? I don't see a problem here. I still don't see a problem.
Look,
you're pretty much explaining why this movie made $300 million.
Yeah, and it's losing money because of that.
I thought it made money.
No, because
it was what? The budget was $200 million, and it grossed.
Studios only get half.
And the gross.
And also you have to add
$85 million worldwide.
You have to count marketing budget also.
Yeah, that's
even more money. So you see, the thing is, this is an example when you cater to because Godzilla fans loved it. My theater, Godzilla fans were cheering.
Yeah.
So I get it. and there's cool shots and there's cool scenes.
Hold on.
And
But you're completely ignoring the commentary this movie provides about global warming and climate change, all right?
how humans are the virus. I get it. Okay.
There's so many layers of complexity in this film. I just think you're being too unfair.
Including, like when like the mom in the movie is talking about like in like species like humans as a virus. Like you can put like there's a slideshow in the background that just gets put like a montage that just automatically goes on the screen like if she preloaded. Oh, God, it's such a
I don't see a problem. No. But moving on.
okay.
Respectfully disagree.
This
This
is
movie says Godzilla, it gives Godzilla. No,
fine.
no
I'm not gonna look. I To each his own.
Yep. Yeah,
As long
I'm just messing. I'm just messing.
No, I know, but the thing is, like, the thing when it comes to like you and I, we love to joke around and pull each other's leg. But one of the things like I like as if you love if you love Godzilla, King of the Monsters, good for you. I wish I liked it. That's what it comes down to.
Sure.
But like, I will defend my own position, but I don't like to attack other people's positions.
Man, your opinion's garbage, bro. Your opinion's trash. You're
Exactly right.
Your opinion is objectively wrong. That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Your subjective opinion is objectively wrong.
Your opinion is objectively wrong.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, good stuff. Alrighty, number three.
Third to last, and this is going to be very controversial. How to Train Your Dragon 3.
I mean, this one, I'm understandable.
This is one of the few times that I've been so like I'm not on the critic side because it's gotten at 90% Rotten Tomatoes. Mm-hmm. But I'm like the reason why it's here is because I see the potential, mm-hmm. and it didn't meet it. So it's like you could have been better. You could have been much better. Yeah. So that's kind of like maybe unfairly I'm comparing against this potential, but like it was a great first movie, and in my opinion, a great second movie. Yeah. The third movie just didn't work. And why would you have a gag when like Jonah Hill's character, like one of like Hiccup's friends, is having like a MILF crush on like Hiccup's mom? Why?
That's
why. Anyways,
yeah, understandable.
The second the worst movie of the year. And if I were any popular, I would get 1,000 supporters and 1,000 detractors arguing in the comment section right now. The Rise of Skywalker.
Wow. You don't like The Rise of Skywalker, huh? Ooh. So I boycotted this film, but because I didn't want to support Disney's sequel trilogy. But then I read the plot summary. I just want to know what happened. And boy, what really pisses me off about this movie, like the most, is that it totally this isn't an original opinion. Millions of people have said this, but it destroys Anakin's sacrifice in Episode 6. Anakin sacrifices his life to save his son, and as at least what feels like Disney's mega twist, they bring him back as this final evil boss, and I'm just like, to me it's like they're spitting on the grave of this amazing trilogy that I watched when I was a kid, watching this redemption arc and having that being taken away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like, I can't even get angry at that. It's just like, because you and I had a conversation like off camera about like spitting on legacy.
Yeah,
like we've had a lot of talk about that, but just as a movie, like forget about like whatever the past is, like whatever your attachment to characters are, right? Just as a movie, this movie is lazy. It's terribly lazy. And when your twists are something that comes out of a Reddit thread.
Yeah.
Like when like people back in 2015 were predicting that Rey was Palpatine's kid, like, and you go there.
I know.
that's like as a movie. Like I know you don't want to hear this, but Last Jedi was a better movie. So
to me, honestly, the first one, if I have to say there's the best movie, it'd probably be the first one. And I consider it be best, second best, worst, then worst. Even though I haven't seen the third one because I didn't want to support it.
Then you can't say it. That's an opinion.
Fine, it's my opinion, but you know what? I'll stand by it. You know, I read
but it's
I want to see what I want to know what happens.
Uninformed.
Uninformed? I don't know if it's uninformed. I don't know.
Very. Well, you have to see it.
All right, maybe you're right. It's just.
I want to show you something though, because they had Colin Trevorrow originally directing this, and then he left the project. And there was concept art that leaked of his original script and the original story, and it's much better. Okay, let me put it this way: on paper, it looks better than.
Okay.
And the reason is because one of the things it does is it takes place on Coruscant.
Oh.
And so it's like a tie back to the prequel. So basically, and you have what is it? Okay, here it is. Let me get this to you. Check your Facebook Messenger. And I'm sending it to you right now. So here's the difference when it comes to this this story. First off, it's on Coruscant, right? And the first order is on Coruscant. And if you look at the concept art, there's a big behemoth of a huge starship rolling around. And this movie would have been a sequel to The Last Jedi, a proper sequel. So Rose and Finn are going to lead a resistance, like an uprising, a good old style uprising on Coruscant, right? Yep. Kylo Ren. Okay, the Emperor doesn't come back in this, which is good. In this version, Kylo Ren. Kylo.
The guillotine, the lightsaber guillotine. Holy cow!
Like Kylo Ren, doesn't get redeemed, but there is a force fight. There is a force fight, and you find out that Kylo Ren killed Rey's parents, and Rey is not Palpatine. Thank goodness.
Awesome.
But the thing is, with the caveat that one thing people need to know is that things on paper might not necessarily translate into the final product. And one of the things that Colin Trevorrow was bad at, his writing and directing. He directed Jurassic World and wrote Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom is a terrible script.
Yeah.
But that being said, this idea at least is contained with The Last Jedi. And say what you will about The Last Jedi, you don't want to backtrack in a way that's not cohesive. You want to move forward, right?
Yeah, it seemed like this movie, at least from what I can tell, just try to explain every complaint people had with The Last Jedi, or tie up every loose end, And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. It's the third movie. You should progress forward with whatever storyline you're trying to come up with, and not try to explain Rian Johnson's decisions 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, just go forward. And maybe it's because after Carrie Fisher's passing, maybe this is the reason why it didn't get made. But there's a lot of things. But I really, I wish they made this movie, because at least I feel like conceptually it makes more sense, and it ties in it's more a small scale, a big scale. So you just have you don't have the whole galaxy coming in to fight on Exegol and fighting Palpatine's big fleet, right? But it's still an uprising, right? A planetary uprising, right?
Yeah.
And the symbol of if you make things smaller, they can sometimes feel bigger.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And that's what so I think at least conceptually that would have been more interesting. But you can see that. We're almost done. We're
all right.
5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. We'll be done.
Here we go. 5 minutes.
That was in 3 hours.
I know.
I know.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know, I am.
Everyone's
I am.
friend. You're so
Sorry, JP.
I'm a bully. I'm a bully.
I'm sorry.
Okay, let's finish this. Number 1. We're number
I guess.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
dinner. Dinner, Leo.
Dinner. Okay. Yep. We're literally finishing up in 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Worst movie.
Toy Story 4.
No.
Dude, I don't even know.
Abomination of cinema.
I don't even know.
JP, name an animal.
The Lion King. An
No,
animal.
name a house animal.
Name dog, cat, dog, cat. Oh yeah, how could I forget? Ooh, man, how could I forget? Yeah,
This is it's experience that will never be replicated again. And I did a dedicated part of my last episode to it, so I'm not going to repeat it. But when you have a movie that just accidentally conveys a different message.
Yeah.
And the visual effects are so badly done and the rules are inconsistent. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, Leo. Go on YouTube. Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Wrong, Leo. Cat's cradle.
I can do it.
All right, I'm on YouTube.
Type in cat's cockroach scene.
There are children here. Are you sure?
It's fine. They need to be horrified. Kids need to be horrified. It's okay. 16-second clip.
Whoa.
What are you looking at? Leo,
What?
are you watching? Leo, what are you watching?
Wow, that's a bad movie. That's a terrible movie. Holy cow.
That's the tip of the iceberg. That's the tip of the iceberg.
That's really
What are you watching?
Yeah,
That's
what
really
are you
bad.
watching?
He's so bad,
We're
isn't
talking
he?
about the worst movie of the year, and I think I know why. Cats is the worst. That's disgusting.
That's
It's very, very...
Peanut Butter Falcon didn't make your list. I just realized. I was scrolling down this.
It's in my 20. It's my top
20s.
20.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Because I really like that
It's
one.
good.
Yeah,
It's
I love
really
that
good.
one. That's good.
It's good. My only dock against it is I feel like the pacing is a little too fast. Like there's scenes when you feel like
That's fine.
you're like, oh, this needed an extra like 2 minutes. But yeah. It seems like your family really needs you. So we're gonna so thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you for having me and inviting me on this show. It's been a real pleasure. I feel more now at the end of this long discussion. I feel a greater need to install Netflix and watch a couple more films.
That's good. My job is done here. So thank you so much. And thank you to the viewers. If you've made it this long, I love you and thank you so much. And I will see you on the next episode of the First Rate Podcast.
Farewell. Bye-bye.